Hello and welcome everybody to the 6 Pixels Under podcast. This is episode, in fact, I just clicked off the screen, episode 99. And WoW Shadowlands is coming out any second now, just about. So we'll get to talk a bit about that. I want to hear from you guys. What's your experience with that? Also, just in general, if you've had the chance to even try it, if you've been following it, will you try it? All that other good stuff. In terms of what else we'll cover today, there was a new world article that came out recently. Apparently they're going to be adding some more in-game content, as well as fishing. Yeah, so that was, we'll talk a bit about that and go over that as well. IGN covered that. Hope you're doing well, everyone. Yeah, hope you're doing well, everyone, as well. Also, hello, Phosphoric Acid, Six Dead Mice, Drevode, I just followed. And yeah, I hope everyone's doing good this week to start off the week. Monday, 11/23/2020. So we're 3 days away from Thanksgiving here in Merca. And yeah, how's your week been, guys? What have you guys been up to? I've this week was busy, but also like not at the same time. I managed to find at least a little bit of time to kind of like look at things and see what the lay of the land is regarding video games and what games have been coming out, and just trying to see, like, you know, playing more Cold War as well, playing more COD than I've normally played a shooter in who knows how long. So that's been happening as well. Cyberpunk is coming out like any day now as well. We have that. There's a lot of heavy hitters, and my mic volume is way too loud, so I'm going to turn myself down here, guys, but I should still be coming through. Just let me know if I'm too loud. If I ever come in too loud, assault me, because I don't want to assault your ears. So you can assault me in chat and say, hey, it's too loud. I've only played... It sounds too low now? Yeah, who knows what this sound stuff. Like, my mic, I think, is on its last legs, because every now and then it'll just start to crackle for no reason. And like in the middle of my conversations. So I've had this mic now for about 3 years, and I got it for free, actually. Shout out to Rode. They sent it to me for free, even when I was a nobody YouTuber. I didn't even have an audience then. And I just emailed them out of the blue and was like, hey, you know, please. And it worked. And I think that's actually something I'd like to talk about a little bit in video games, is like, you'd be surprised that a lot of things work like that. In fact, the first time that I got sponsored by Curse Entertainment back in the day, shout out to Hugh, by the way, who follows me on Twitter, the previous owner. He liked actually a couple of my videos. So when I got sponsored in Guild Wars 2, I guess for me it was like you think about like the process to go through getting sponsored. Like, people find you, there's I guess a little bit of buzz or excitement around you, but it's pretty hard to even have any excitement in the MMO world regarding things that aren't necessarily like MMO related, right? Like esports. I even at this point say like PvP, roleplay. Like, these things have weirdly become almost like, I guess my argument's almost cobbling together now in my head. Sorry, apologies. But yeah, it's funny how these very core tenets, that without those tenets, we would have never had MMOs in the first place. In fact, the Dark Age of Camelot game that came before Dark Age of Camelot, there was a game that came before that made by the same creators, was basically just like a faction warfare game. So it's just, you think about these things and you're like, man, they got it right in this other genre, and then made Dark Age of Camelot possibly the greatest PvP MMO ever. And what has come out since then that's rivaled it? Warhammer, some games here and there, you know? And then now think about roleplay. Everyone thinks about EQ, Galaxies. Those are probably the biggest roleplay titles I can think of personally, besides games like Habbo Hotel, which are literally about being in a chat room, so you're kind of role-playing. What has outpaced those games now too? Habbo Hotel, The Sims Online. In fact, I'd like to specifically focus on things that have fallen out of favor, and I'll start with social chat rooms and social social chat rooms and virtual worlds. So social chat rooms, social avatars, they're all related because basically in these kinds of games, just like when you joined an AIM chat room or an IRC chat room back in the day, the same concept applies, except this time you choose your character. So you choose how you want to look. Maybe you make your hair look as crazy as mine does look today, for example. It's the Jewish in me, I guess, but however you want yourself to look. Maybe you're a man playing a female character. Maybe you're a woman playing a male character. Maybe you're something else in between. Maybe you have, maybe you feel like being a man sometimes and a woman other times. These are not very strange concepts in social avatar, socializing virtual world types of games, right? Like, Club Penguin is one that people think about, but it's not at all kind of what I'm talking about. I will definitely acknowledge Club Penguin for being very influential, but I think Club Penguin is a blatant copy of Habbo Hotel, and Neopets. Like, those games are just blatant copies of whatever came before them. But anyway, I want to talk about social chat rooms a little bit, though, Tram Pam Pam. So, Club Penguin is definitely one of those. And I guess, my thing is I mentioned this on Twitter. There's an app right now that's trending. It's called Clubhouse. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this, but it's like some new app where you kind of have to have an invite, and it's like this new form of almost like Twitter with like voice chat and other like interesting little like additions to it. But it has the feeling of being, Clubhouse feels more like, well, being in a clubhouse, being in a room. You can have private rooms and public rooms and things like that. All of that was the same exact concept in Habbo Hotel, which came out in 2000, by the way. Let me repeat that. All of that was the same concept that came out in 2000. So I thought to myself then, you'd be surprised, Limpos, the sex didn't happen in the private rooms because you wouldn't know about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the sex that was happening in cyber was just the empty rooms. So the key is empty room, not private room. I know from experience. You got to find a tub in an empty room, not a private room. Remember, you can't get into the private room. Anyway, I thought to myself, what if Habbo Hotel, which came out in 2000, and The Sims Online, which came out a year or two later, what if those games came out today? What would be their impact, like in modern versions of themselves? I think it would be astronomical. And I'm not just like trying to overstate that. My reasoning being, right now we're in a pretty desperate time, and people want social interaction, and they're not able to get it in the same ways that they normally do. And even if you maybe didn't normally get socialized outside, now you definitely can. So it's almost like an even more of a deterrent, right? Most people aren't even a man or a female in VR chat. A lot of animals and random cartoon characters. Yeah, for sure. VR chat is definitely the closest, and I'm really glad that you guys mentioned that as an example. The only reason I'll say I didn't mention it as an example is because I actually think currently VR chat is kind of harmful for the industry. And I'm going to sound weird because I also support it, but I guess what I mean by harmful is I don't know how much a place like VR chat is actually creating social discussions versus creating memes and creating those kinds of things. Because I've seen a lot of memes. I see a lot of the places that people can go who maybe feel a bit like they're not wanted on the internet. Maybe they need a place to congregate. Like maybe furries feel like they're, for example, since Second Life, what game have furries really attracted themselves to? I don't know, besides Second Life. So maybe Second Life VR chat's the next evolution from that. I guess what I'm trying to say is just my problem I notice in VR chat is that not only is it restrictive to have VR equipment still, I'm not really sold on VR chat yet. I guess part of it right now is it just feels like a concept. It doesn't feel like a game. And Habbo Hotel was a game. And how it was a game basically is that you actually had assets. You had an economy, right? There were things that you could barter over. So there was currencies. And I think that VR chat, at least as it was, shown to me, still seems to be very early goings of that. So VR chat, I definitely think you guys are right, is going to be that game. Well, maybe not VR chat itself, but something like VR chat. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that from what I've seen of VR chat, it looks like the most magnetic thing to degenerates in existence. Yeah, I mean, degenerates is your word. I wouldn't necessarily say degenerates. I would just say people that are weird. People who are abnormal. People who don't have the support in a regular game. Yeah. Because, I mean, I consider myself a degenerate, but I don't know what other people use that word for necessarily. nor what their opinion is of the word. Words aren't as sensitive for myself, so that's why I don't easily pass them off on other people, basically. Man, if you think VR chat isn't a big deal, you should see Sansar. The game has weirdos everywhere, and they're all in cahoots with the admins. Oh man, I don't even know anything about Sansar. So yeah, I'll have to look into that. Someone said something earlier in chat. Let me make sure I didn't miss that before I start missing everything. How's it going, Ashley Riot? What's up, Alundra's son? Isomore, ASL. I missed that, buddy. That's funny. You got second place on a small WoW battle pet tourney this weekend, Drevode. Shadowlands patch messed up a bunch of mechanics. Most people don't like it. So I'm going to talk about that in a bit. I'm glad that you're already ahead of the show, but I'm going to wait for a second to talk a little bit about that. Let's get into this shit a little bit more here. Dextober says, I've only played Battle for Azeroth. I don't plan to go back to WoW anytime soon. Been having fun playing card games instead. TCGs or CCGs, out of curiosity? Or maybe one of those new ones. What do they call the new ones? Where they're like contained inside of it's like a deck that's contained and you know what cards you're going to get. What's that one called? It's not CCG, because I already said CCG. It's another CG. LCG, thank you. I knew someone in chat knew. Rekful was trying to make something like that, a modern, more mature version of Club Penguin, Habbo Hotel. Yeah, Everland. Yeah, I actually tried to reach out. Rest in peace, by the way. Both before and after. And I really wish they would have accepted the advice. Because I don't really know what the future is of that project, but I actually had pretty high hopes for it, actually. Just because I could tell that, again, you know, to speak of somebody who tragically passed, taking their own life, he was working on a game that was trying to bring people together. And that's something that I've been trying to do for most of my life as well, you know? Rekful had a lot more capital than I did, so he was much further along in that journey, right? Of trying to create that kind of world. And at risk of not getting too emotional, that hurt me when he passed, I'll be honest. Because I could see myself in that, you know? Like, Everland was like Habbo Hotel 2.0 for me. You know, it was... Yeah, I can't help but get emotional about that. I don't like to talk about that stuff too much. I don't like to talk about emotional shit with you guys just to, like, talk about it, like, willy-nilly, you know? Usually I only talk about it if it's, like, important to me. And yeah, that's why I took the Rekful death pretty seriously, honestly. Because he even came to Darkfall and played with us one time, you know? Like, he was in Asheron's call vet. We all knew him in that community. And, yeah, we miss him. I remember I had friends in high school who used RuneScape as a chat room and didn't even play the game. Yeah, that sounds like a bunch of my friends, by the way, growing up. Like, they'd play MMOs with me, but they didn't want to PvP or, like, even raid or anything. And I'm just like, what do you do in this game? And, like, they would just walk around with you in Quest. Like, you don't see that as much nowadays. I saw it a lot in Classic WoW. In fact, you can argue it's because I'm a YouTuber, people want to play with me. It's so hard for me to make these same arguments I used to make when I was younger because obviously now I have a bigger audience. So maybe people are more willing to want to play with me on their own volition. But I'm just saying, like, in my experience when I was playing WoW, people seemed a lot more willing to want to help me do quests, even just for fun purposes, like social purposes, which is, you know, really fun and why I enjoyed the leveling experience in WoW despite me not liking theme park MMOs that much. Tower Unite is also kind of like that. Early show. Yeah, I started a little bit earlier, Card. I figure sometimes I start later. I figure mix it up and start earlier. I am not a person for schedules. So yeah, don't ever try to impose a schedule on me unless it's our video game project. And then you can yell at me. No problem. Outcasts find their own space. Ragnarok Online MMOs used to be... so RP MMOs used to be that space for many. Yeah, and I think that's kind of why VR chat is so popular now. Is I honestly truly believe this. I'm not just saying this to sound edgy, guys. I think if there was an MMO that still was like Habbo Hotel, Everland, these other games we've talked about, and did well, I don't think VR chat would be dominating the space like it does. Like, because I think it's too early, is what I'm trying to say. I think it works right now because there's basically nothing else you can play that's kind of like that in the same way. And it was early. So like those two things gave it a big advantage in a weird way, but also gave it a big disadvantage because I think it's almost impossible for them to make a game now. You see what I'm saying? They've made a chat room, but have they made a game? I'm not convinced. Not quite yet. Living card games. Yeah. Good catch, Six Dead Mice. And also, Dim, how's it going? And thanks for correcting me. I never take it personal when you guys correct me, by the way. I actually prefer you to correct me. Like, I rely on you guys more than y'all know. I talk emotions. I got one. Utter fury and wrath. Is that one or two? Sounds like me while I'm on Final Fantasy XIV, at least in between raiding. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why downtime was created, was to socialize, right? One of the original founders of the MMO genre, right? One of the original pioneers, rest in peace as well, Brad McQuaid. That was his plan behind EverQuest. Now, he overdid it, and he always admitted that, like, well, maybe it shouldn't be like you can write a novel in between the raid downtimes, right? He made that exact statement, and it was always an iconic one because we were all like, okay, I mean, maybe writing a novel is and reading a novel is a bit too much like to be able to do in between raids. But the idea of wanting to socialize with people after engagements and have downtime was so important. And it's one of my biggest issues in the vast majority of theme park MMOs is the content and flow of the game. We talk about flow, that's like a intrinsic kind of hard to explain thing, but flow is like, you know, that feeling of like, boom, quests here, loading into the character here. You know who has great flow? Warhammer Online, tier 1 experience, one of the best early game experiences ever in a theme park game. SWTOR is up there as well. Not as good for an MMO, but definitely up there for a game and a multiplayer online RPG, but like, Warhammer immediately gets you involved in the massive shit. In fact, it's part of the game. It's part of the questing. It's you walk there, there's an open quest. Hey, come help this person who's doing the quest. Oh, there's a PvP zone, RVR lake. They need some help. Can you come help them out? Like, these games are much better at that than some of these other games. Yeah, rip Brad. Brad, again, just like Wreckful, troubled most of his life as well. So sometimes I think, like, to put a bow on that discussion quickly, I mean, if it opens up, it opens up. But just to say, like, my side, my piece is, I talk about it a lot because it's important to me and because it's who I am. I suffer from PTSD and depression, and I know what it's like to feel like you want to kill yourself and actually want to kill yourself. I know what that's like seriously. And I also know it's not a matter of it's just one moment. Sometimes it's over the course of many, many years that this bad rhetoric, this poor mentality, this very low self-esteem of yourself, belief in yourself, all of that like just creeps up on you until that one final moment, and then boom, you make a bad decision, and that's the end of it. So that's why, like, on our forum, our Discord, and even here in chat, we don't joke about suicide. It's 100% bannable here. There's no jokes. And the reason being, if you joke about shit like that, you'll have what we have today, which is normalized suicide, where people think it's a fucking joke. Like, it's funny to talk about how horrible your life is and that you want to commit suicide and we'll all bond together and it has 100,000, 20,000 upvotes. Yeah, like, actually, Limpos, you would have gotten probably instantly banned by Card because him and I are pretty brutal about it. Like, it's not something to fuck around with. Suicide isn't a fucking joke, and neither is normalizing it. I think that's why they shorten. I think it's just too much of the same. You're talking about, if only they could figure out, sorry, I'm going back to read the context. If only they could figure out how to keep the leveling experience going. The late game is when the game just nosedives off a cliff. Oh, and also, just to talk about humor, I have probably some of the darkest humor, and I can take jokes pretty well. So it's not even about that. It's just like, I don't find it funny to joke about things that have killed people in my life. Like suicide and drug abuse aren't really that funny to me. So everyone has their things that you just don't really talk about, things that you kind of stay away from. Those are my two things. So I'm still willing to talk about those things, but don't think you can just speak ill of them or speak willy-nilly about those things and I'm supposed to still respect you or appreciate it. Excited to play Shadowlands. Frost DK main all set. but the upcoming release of Cyberpunk on the 10th will kill all of the hype for me, I'm afraid. So we're like 2 weeks away then? Is that so? Yeah, that's like 2 weeks away, just about. Maybe a couple more days. Actually, at the end of this week, it'll probably be a week and a half or something, right? So man, that's crazy close. Hopefully they don't delay it again, obviously. The loving experience for WoW just gets worse the longer it goes. Completely agree. And I agree with Limpos as well. 50 to 60 for me was like... No, 40... Okay, actually, I take that back. 50 to 60 wasn't as bad, because I'm one of those people, when I see the end goal, I can like keep pushing. 35 or 32 to like 40 something was bad for me. You know? That was like one of my worst ones. I almost wanted to quit at level 42, straight up. Like, I just wanted to quit. Because everyone throughout my experience of playing MMOs has always talked about STV and these PvP zones and how hardcore WoW used to be, and it was like PvP. And then I went and joined a PvP server, and I was like, WoW flagged. It's just, I point that out not to say I told you so, but to say it's always funny when people tell you how things are supposed to be so confidently, like it's this way, I promise it's this way. And it's not really that way at all. But that's not because they're lying, it's because they don't have the experience to know what it feels like to actually play a PvP game. You see what I'm saying? If you have that experience, you're not waxing poetic about STV and some of the PvP zones in WoW Classic. Sorry, you're just not. There's no planet that you are. Because if you've played any of these real PvP games that have like systems completely built around it, it's a completely different ball game. I mean, there's a reason why I never played WoW, guys. Like, well, when I say never played, I played it hundreds of hours, but I mean like comparatively to the other games I've played. It's why I played Warhammer way more. I played Warhammer over 1,000 hours. WoW, I've played maybe total like 500 hours. If I added the time that I beat Classic WoW, which was like 400 or so, to maybe another 50, 60 hours whenever I got 2,200 rating, when my friend gave me his warrior account and boosted me with his holy pally. That was the only other time I played WoW before that. I tried to play BFA for a couple of levels and I quit instantly because, once again, the war mode, the war shit, everyone kept talking about, all of the hoopla, PvP, wow, it's so exciting. I listened to that and I'm like, I want to get hyped too. And then I get into it and I'm just like, oh, you're saying that from the perspective of a not MMO player. That's what I kind of realize about a lot of these kind of conversations. Is like, the problem I'm having right now when we talk about things is half the time I don't know what the fuck we're talking about, if I'm being honest. Like, what do I mean by that? Well, because people will say Final Fantasy XIV, the MMORPG. And so then the first question I have is, okay, what's massive in Final Fantasy XIV? I'll give you guys the rest of the show to figure that out. But what's massive in WoW Shadowlands? Scalable content? Being able to choose your adventure? What else is the opposite of massive? Isn't there a couple other things you can do that are like pretty much the opposite of massive? Like they have, there's no server culture anymore. Layering out the wazoo. So good luck seeing the same players again. Yeah, like I don't see just about anything about Shadowlands that seems massive at all. And yet everyone just throws around massive so easily. Why do we do this? Why do we do this to ourselves? Because, again, people hate whenever I cry about this shit, but you won't whenever the games start changing, right? Whenever the games actually start being massive, I feel like some of y'all will actually maybe start to see what my point is, right? Because those games can't come if we keep thinking this is massive. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, if we keep thinking this is massive, then this is going to keep getting sold to us like it's massive. But it's not. Nothing about it is massive. It's literally designed not to be massive. That's the design. So it doesn't mean you hate WoW. No. Shadowlands was, as clear as it gets in my eyes, a step away from being massive. There's, like, please make an argument, somebody. I'm willing to hear you guys out. I can't think of an argument otherwise. that this was probably the biggest step ever towards being a multiplayer online RPG, not a massive multiplayer online RPG. So I've been thinking about if I should try it out because I'm the MMO guy. I know y'all don't come for me for WoW advice, but that's kind of why I want to talk about WoW, is that at least you can get the perspective from somebody who isn't drinking all of the Kool-Aid or isn't like a massive hater. You're going to get kind of more of like the outside perspective of like, if I like it, I'm going to like it. Like I liked Kata, as controversial as that is. That was when I played Arena. End of Wrath pre-patch Kata. I liked that time. That's the time that killed open world PvP, but I liked it. You see, so it's like I can be conflicted with even myself, but it's because I just want to know, what are we playing? And if we all keep calling it massive, I need to see, where is it massive? Otherwise, why are we calling it massive? Like, I just do not understand that. The in-game funerals in WoW for Reckful brought a tear to my eye, and I don't cry often. That shit murders me. Like, the same thing Brad McQuaid, they did it in EverQuest. Guys, if y'all want to see me cry on stream, talk about that kind of shit. Because y'all don't think I've ever thought about dying? I have issues. Of course I've thought about dying. I talked about it just earlier. And so I think sometimes, would my community in an MMO remember me in that way? And I would love to be remembered that way. So if I magically die, go name yourself me and have a bunch of ceremonies in different MMOs for me in my name. I give you guys the choice and the ability and my word. You can have my word on it. You're allowed to go spread that. I'm not planning on dying, guys. I'm just saying that whole idea to me was always like pretty fitting because it helped bring me into this world that we're in. MMOs, right? It helped me learn how to socialize and get better at a lot of things, like selling. I became a good salesman from playing MMOs, as funny as that is. In fact, I remember when I joined the corporate company I worked with previously, and they were basically like, all right, well, you don't have a lot of sales experience with these big projects, so like, are you worried like you're not going to be able to sell anything? And in my head, I'm like, well, I made 1.5 billion in Star Wars Galaxies off of a gambling scheme. So I'm like, I think I can. I'm like using like MMO like situations. I'm like, I think I could do it. I did. But anyway, it was that thinking of the MMO and being like, well, I made a 1.5 bill in this game before. That's pretty impressive. It sucks to have bipolar disorder. Like, yikes, how did I even get that weak genes? Well, sorry about that, Ryviance. I don't have bipolar disorder, but I can cry about my weak genes as well. Weirdly, I didn't feel that way. Although I was taking the journey blind, I leveled without an experience bar. Oh, what game were you talking about, Alundris? I'm curious. Because that sounds like a cool idea. Like, what if we just took out the XP bar in a game? Or even just for like a day? What would happen? What would that look like? Interesting. No, you've never made those jokes, Slim Boss. I say that seriously, but obviously, you know, we're friendly. You and I are friends, so it's not like I'm saying like, I'm warning you, Limpos. I do feel like the leveling experience does have its charm the first few times around. Oh, we're talking about Classic WoW again because I'm like so far behind. When CP 2077 hits, everything will be put on hold. Crimson Desert pay-to-win game preview in 1 week. Pay-to-win game. That's funny. Cacao games, aka pay-to-win games. But it also kind of depends on what you want from the game. Yeah, and so I actually wanted to talk about expectations a little bit today as well, because there's always some interesting threads that arise. Well, besides the usual shit threads on MMORPG, but every now and then there's an interesting thread that's like a concept that I'd like to like unpack, and I think that's one of the ones that I wanted to unpack today. Actually, was expectations. But we'll get into that a little bit later, maybe after our WoW discussion. We're about to get to our WoW discussion now, since we're kind of already trending towards it. I was stuck between 40 to 45 in vanilla WoW for ages, and I just spent time boosting people through DM. I mean, it probably was that way during actual Classic. It wasn't really though, Pin Zero. I think that's a common misconception. What I'm trying to say is that was the PvP scene better at a time when the servers were consistently crashing and the game couldn't perform well on most people's PCs, and then therefore most people had a poor experience? I guess technically they had big battles then, right? But is that really like better than like when I played on Lights Hope, which had way more players on a single server? I don't believe the classic WoW was actually just better because it was first or whatever. I honestly just don't buy that argument, because I enjoyed playing on Lights Hope. I got to level 40 on a PvP server on there just from PvPing, really, like, you know, like meaning focusing on just doing that SCV and what's the other zone? The one with the H. Staying in those zones and just like leveling off of the mobs there. You just missed the STV PvP craze by the time you got there. I was there pretty early, though. I was there even before I was appropriate level. We went there in groups of people. In fact, I'm not sure if Limpos was in our group at the time, but we went to STV and we would go to the beach all the time. We would also go to the, where's that other place with that, the boss cat, the invisible cat, or whatever. That stealth prowler. The one that you can tame or whatever, that's like a special pet. We used to go there a lot too, and there was always players there. So I guess my issue is this. Like, I'm not trying to say that you guys didn't experience that, because I would never say that. My point is more so, I think people get confused between it happened and it's supposed to happen. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, I'll explain a little bit further. So people say, well, in an online game, you socialize, except it doesn't work that way. Yes, you sometimes socialize, but you actually have to build a game that facilitates socialization. So my main argument against WoW is that it itself does not facilitate PvP, even in the open environment. It just facilitates griefing in many cases, which is why I didn't blame people who got annoyed that I went around and PvP'd. Like, because it's like, hey guys, I want a challenge as well. I'm not trying to just kill players who don't even fight back. But I played on a PvP server, and I'm killing players who were level 60 when I was level 40. So, like, I was just trying to understand, when is all of this PvP hardcoreness going to kick in? And it never kicked in for me. So, what that told me is not that everybody's lying that said they had a great experience when the game came out. More so that it happened that way because people didn't know how to play the game, basically. Now that they know how to play the game, they know the game is not set up for that kind of play. And I will sit here and debate that to the end of time. And the reason is because I was in a guild. I talked to players all the time. I tried to understand the players on my PvP server. I talked to people on Grobulus. I was trying to understand, why don't they want to go PvP in an open zone, even when they're leveling? And you know what the simplest answer is? Why? Literally, why do it? For fun? I don't want to have fun. I just want achievements and I want a higher gear score. Getting beaten and never having to improve, that's not fun. Like, you see what I'm saying? It's just like, it's not what they're thinking about. They're not thinking about that. That's such a small part of the game. You realize I'm the weird one for thinking it is more part of the game. Sometimes that happens where I can tell you guys I prefer games to be massive, but I actually really love the multiplayer online RPG market. So I can split hairs sometimes. I guess if you're asking what or when do you stay consistent on when do you like one or the other, or when do you like a game that's like PvP versus not PvP? And the simplest answer is it depends. In WoW's case, I don't like the PvP because it's not supported by the game. So meaning that the vast majority of people playing the game are not going to partake in it. And I'm not just talking about arena, I'm talking about any form of PvP. It's going to be so minuscule by comparison to the rest of the game that you always feel like a second-rate, third-rate, fourth-rate citizen. So I don't know if Shadowlands is planning on solving any of that. I don't think they are. They pretty much took a giant hop right into the multiplayer online RPG space. In fact, don't take my word for it. Take a developer who worked on the game for, let's see. WoW recently lost a developer who had worked there for like 13 years and was one of the original developers behind the Monk. Let me find the guy's name. Don't remember his name off the top of my head, so I gotta find it. Alright, so here's the article. WoW designer quits after 13 years, says he's unhappy with the state of the game. I think in a virtual world and an MMO, really the players are the story. Now, I kind of mocked this on Twitter, and I want to further explain why I was a little bit mocking in my tone, or a bit of an asshole. First off, it's Twitter, so that's what I do on Twitter. If you're trying to engage with me, do not engage with me there, because I can only talk to you a certain amount of characters, and half the time, most people there aren't there to talk to you. So when I talk to people, it's usually my community. But when I had a little bit of some bantery stuff to say about this. Basically, what I said was something to the effect of, why does it take an MMO developer who worked on a project for 13 years to finally come out and say the same shit we've been saying for, honestly, over 10 years at this point? Because I'm not a developer, so people don't listen to me? Or you guys aren't developers, so nobody listens to y'all? Like, y'all don't have good advice? Like, y'all don't tell people what you want in a game, and you're actually pretty good at coming up with, like, pretty cool ideas to put into those games? What I'm trying to say is, like, this weird... Like, MMO industry is so insular. It doesn't make any sense, actually. What I mean by insular is not even that you can't get involved into the industry. In fact, you don't even have to have any MMO experience, and you can work on an MMO. Let me repeat that. You don't have to have any MMO experience and you can work on MMOs. In fact, most of the people who work on them do not have MMO experience. So then you think, okay, well then, not all of them have MMO experience. So then maybe you have people who have, the people who don't have that much experience, maybe they have good ideas. Well, considering here's a guy who worked there for 13 years and he's saying the same shit we all said already, I'm sorry to sound like that asshole, but really, what are we going to get that's so different from the developer's perspective at this point that's going to change the trajectory of everything? Our viewpoint and how we like games, how we enjoy PvP or PvE, raids, virtual worlds, and all of it. Is some developer just going to say the words and all of a sudden we're going to be like, you're right, we do think that way? Of course not. Rant mode engage, exactly. We're not. Like, I don't need a 13-year-old... or 13-year-long developer to tell me the same shit somebody who just played their first MMO told me as well. That's all I'm trying to say here, guys. Like, if it might seem like I'm coming across as confrontational, it's because I probably am to a certain extent. It's because I've spoken with developers behind the scenes, and I've been told stories by these guys that would shock you. And I've told some of these stories to y'all already. I told y'all the story of how Julio Torres came up with the NGE because he saw somebody fucking around in an offline mod and thought, that looks like a cool action game. Let's do it. You can't make this shit up. Like, MMOs are getting fucked up by the people making them, guys. That's why you have to care about this shit. 13 years later, he's saying this? Where was all of this earlier? Where was this when you made the monks in Pandaria? Like... where was all of this smoke earlier? Oh, wait, you were working for the company, so you couldn't say that stuff, right? That's why, sorry, this whole news cycle that came out of this, and people blew it up out of proportion to be like, wow, Asmongold had a react video to it. I'm just like, what's so shocking about this? Most, if not all, of the original developers left the company. Same thing with BioWare. It's like I'm pulling back the cover on people. I'm not trying to blow people's spots, guys. I'm just trying to say, if we don't hold them accountable, they're not going to make better games. They won't. We can't keep excusing them. Like, I get excuses all the time for developers, and it's so weird to me, because I'm getting messages from guys who work with Jagex. Or I'm getting messages from guys who worked at Daybreak. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting messages from guys who right now are building MMOs. And they're just like, these guys are fucking it up for us. So that's why I get fired up about this shit. It's because I get the side from the people who are making the games who are annoyed that these people aren't speaking up. You're a part of the biggest fucking company involved in this space, and y'all couldn't say any about this shit beforehand? Like, you're really surprised at this point it's not a virtual world, you know? Yeah, it's just, anyway. That's what makes me rant about it, is I just think, like, if we listen to player fucking feedback, we don't have to wait 13 years to realize we made mistakes. Like, whoops, 13 years later, oops. And yes, clearly it's not all of this guy's fault. Like, jokes aside, rants aside, this is one person. So I'm not singling out this one person, so I'm actually not going to say his name. You guys can look up the article. In fact, I'll post the article in chat. My intention is not to blow his spot up. It's to blow up developers' spots in general. I want them to feel like they are held accountable. And if that makes them feel like they have to hate me, be scared of me, or whatever else, then I guess I'll be the boogeyman. Because, like, I want good games for you guys, and for me, and for the industry. I want great games, right? And we aren't going to make great games if we keep figuring out 13 years after the fact that maybe the game has changed a little bit. Is Guild Wars 2 massive? Funny enough, Guild Wars 2 for me is probably the most massive of the more recent multiplayer online RPG titles. And that was deliberate. You can see that in their advertising strategy, their trailers, the way they hype the game, the early content in the game, the main focuses of content in the game. They're all massive. So Guild Wars is actually a very easy game to defend the massiveness in, but go play Guild Wars right now and tell me if that's the same Guild Wars experience you're going to get. Well, I'll spoil it for you. It's not. It's not played that same way anymore. In fact, the content literally has gone away from massive on purpose because it was failing for them. So Guild Wars 2 is so interesting in that respect because in my eyes, they forgot what made the first game popular, which was the fact that it wasn't an MMO. That's just my opinion. Classic WoW was lacking a lot of questing near the 50s. Leveling was a pain. I grinded my last, 5 levels, too. I actually enjoyed that more than I did the questing, if I'm being honest. There's also the fact that they were younger at the time, had little knowledge about the game. Yeah, that's true. Phosphoric. And I think we kind of all got woken up to that whenever Classic WoW came out, to a certain extent. The game sub numbers are pretty massive. Good point, Pen Zero. Those checks are massive, homie. That's funny. Layering sucks. Server culture is good. People behave better when people know and remember who you are. True. Work in any customer service job and you'll remember that. Because there's nothing better out there. Fair enough. I think that's actually a pretty fair argument to play any game, actually. I never attack people for saying, what else am I supposed to play? I don't know, but if that's the only thing you could think of to play whatever is fun to you. But then we don't have to pretend that it's anything other than you're playing it because there's nothing else better on the market. You know what I'm saying? Which you guys are very honest about, but I notice that there are some players who, as soon as I say I don't like a game, the first thing they say is, what game do you play? 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 It's like the seagulls, mine. Why are they asking me what game I play? Out of curiosity, do you think it's because people really want to know? Really? That's why you're posting a YouTube comment, the same comment that's been posted dozens of times. You just really want to know what game I'm playing. No, it's because you think it's an argument to say that a game is better than the shitty alternatives. And I don't agree with that mentality at all. In fact, I'm diametrically opposed to it. If a game is shit, regardless if it's the only game on the market, it's still shit. Any MMO that supports 16-player raids should be massive. Yeah, maybe in 93 or something. Or 90... Shit, when was 16 players still massive? I think that's Mud times. And Muds came out in the 80s and 70s, so... One of the earliest Muds already had 100 players, though. So, yeah. They're doing worse than the game that came before that was text-based. Imagine, your game is smaller than a text-based game in terms of massiveness. Yeah, massive. 2020 massive. Has any other game changed genre during its life? I don't think so, Adric. And that's why I actually think WoW did an amazing job of doing that. Just because I don't like it, and I don't like what it's become because of its bastardization of the market, in my opinion, based on essentially ignoring every single rule regarding building a virtual world and an MMO, and then realizing, wait a minute, we're not the same game anymore. With WoW, I guess my issue with it is that they did it having no idea what they were doing, despite us players telling them every step of the way, Hey, you're making the game less like an MMO. Hey, you're making the game more like an achievement-seeking game. Hey, you're making this game more like this. Hey, like, I'm not the biggest WoW fan, and I haven't been there since the beginning, but I've seen those arguments raised by WoW players since the beginning. Like, they've been making those arguments. Don't get me started on the TBC arguments, the Wrath of the Lich King arguments. Those all kind of end up in the same kind of arguments, you know? Where it's just like, they think that that ruined the MMO part of the game. But if that's your argument, sure, I agree with you. But you also have to acknowledge they made the game better in another way. And that's kind of my point here, is that WoW now has basically, what's the word? Has shed its clothing. It's massive MMO clothing that used to kind of like hunker it down. Humper. That sounds sexual. Hunker, you know? Hunker down and just focus on the aspects that are working for the game, which are not the massive aspects. So that is 100% an amazing business decision, in my opinion, based on the situation they're in. So meaning that because it's already gotten to this point, I think Shadowlands was probably the best thing they could have done. Personally. I'm not saying it was the best implemented. Please don't attack me for that, because I know there's a lot of drama concerning that part. But I'm just saying, like, the concept of it, I fully support. In fact, do you guys remember on the stream, I literally made this argument before? I said, man, I wish the new expansion just got rid of the whole massive aspect, made all of the level zones like you can just choose them in piecemeal content, and focused on just that story experience. I said that on here. Unfortunately, Twitch fucking deletes VOD, so good luck with me trying to find that clip, because that would have been a cool clip to put in a video. But I talked about it here, and it's because that's the logical thing for them to do at this point, right? What makes more sense, for them to shrink down things in terms of their scope, or to raise the scope at this point? Which one makes more sense for WoW? To shrink the scope down to, here are the characters, the story experiences, the raids, the go here, go to this zone, go do this. Or think, go explore, go here, create your own content. Player made this, player made that, player interactivity here. I mean, clearly it's the other one, right? Like, they haven't been doing the other one for some time, as this developer and many other people have admitted at this point, right? So no, to answer your question, Ajik, I don't think any game like that in the MMO space has ever switched genres. Like, this is like, yeah, this is unheard of. But I think it's actually really good, and hopefully it'll teach other games that they could do something similar. And shed the whole nonsense of being massive. Please shed it. It's holding you back, SWOTOR, by the way. Games like that. I can only see the argument that it holds you back. Because the game's not even massive, literally. So why is trying to sell it and make it seem as if it is even a part of any effort, period? All the effort should just be focused on making the multiplayer online RPG a better experience. Action adventure, that thing is the most ambivalent genre. That's okay, fair enough. I don't even know if I can defend that one, honestly. I always loved how we held funerals in EVE Online. I still have a recording we did of the last one I attended of a former Alliance leader of an Alliance I was a part of. It is its own tradition, really, in how it works. Yeah, I remember when you talked about that. That was just like, that's heavy. But man, can you imagine how much that would have meant to somebody like that? Somebody like me, to be remembered in a game? That actually would mean a lot for me, guys, because that's how I got started, remember? I've always wanted to get into EVE, but it seems so daunting at first. I get what you're trying to say, but how does one explain the difference between games like Warframe and WoW? WoW certainly feels more open and more massive to you. I guess my question for you is it just because of players running around a hub zone? Because by that same logic, Phantasy Star Online should be massive to you as well. And that's the thing, is I just think you bring up a good point, but once you see the whole picture, I feel like it's actually, you kind of understand what I'm trying to say a little bit better, hopefully. That you can use the same argument for games that actually are bad examples. You know, like Warframe's that good example of being kind of like weird, like on the cusp of it. And I think there's just plenty of other games that are just like Warframe, Phantasy Star. And Phantasy Star, I think, let's just focus on Phantasy Star, because I think it's probably that and Neverwinter Nights, the original on AOL, and also Guild Wars 1, I think are the earliest precursors to the multiplayer online RPG market. My reasoning for this is that Guild Wars 1 is not an MMO. It's called a CRPG, or a CORPG, so a cooperative online RPG, aka a multiplayer online RPG, basically. It's just a different name. AOL, the Neverwinter Nights that launched on AOL back in like the early 90s is also described as a multiplayer online RPG. Now, my final example I mentioned... Damn it, what was my other example I mentioned? Phantasy Star. Yeah, duh. Phantasy Star. So those are like my 3 big examples I tell people when they think about the differences between these kind of genres. More like a subgenre in many ways. To Limpas's point, actually, about the design differences. Yeah, I would say Phantasy Star. Look at how these games are designed. Phantasy Star has been the hub-based multiplayer style game since like 2000, 2001. The game's old as shit. In fact, I think it came out in Japan even earlier than that. Like, I think it came out a couple of years before it came out on Xbox. So it's like maybe even older than that. So Phantasy Star, very early turn of the century game, right? Made that style of game pretty famous, and yet gets literally no credit for it. I don't understand that at all. Who else did it? It was on Dreamcast Online. That's true. But seriously, who else did Phantasy Star, or did what Phantasy Star did? They literally created a genre. Even if it's a subgenre. And we don't even talk about it. Like, nobody even acknowledges that. So maybe that means I need to make a video about it then. Yeah, I guess I do. I'll make a video about Phantasy Star 1 then. Talk about its impact, because I think it's one of the most impactful games that nobody really knows about. And all the OGs here, we have a couple of OGs here who played it back in the day. Y'all know the influence. Like, y'all were there. Y'all saw all the games start copying it. But it's hard to let people know that who weren't there. You have to be able to show it to them. You know, you can't just tell them, like, actually, Phantasy Star started it all. They're like, huh? Like, this game looks weird. Or, like, how is this even, like, related to these other games? But then when you look at it, like, by the nuts and bolts of it, it's the same exact games. You know what I'm saying? Like, the designs. They're the same paths. Flashbacks to my dad. Would you mind me dumping 1,500 characters about battle pets? I don't know what the minimum for a post is on here, but if you can, if you can, then yeah, by all means, feel free to share whatever you have. Badlands, there you go, Bacon. How's it going, Bacon? I can more or less confirm my PvP experience in STV, or in Classic STV, was pretty meh. Your original experience, or like you would have said vanilla. Was your vanilla experience much better? Different languages in game doesn't help. Good point. Are you still reviewing Albion Online? I thought about it, and I'm not really inspired to do it. And it's funny because, like, it's the kind of thing that a creator doesn't really like to admit. But I admit that because, well, I'm honest with you guys, but also, like, the game was not fun. Like, it was fun for all of, like, realizing that the game is still exactly the same as I left it before, basically. So, like, my experience with the game was pretty negative, and I'm not one of those people who gets off on just being overly negative about things. So while I could make a video and just be like, you know, here are all my reasons I don't like Albion Online, and here are the only things redeemable about the game or whatever. Like, if I have that kind of opinion, which is basically what my opinion is, I don't really know how helpful it's going to be for people, because I personally think that although my arguments are better now to understand what the problems are with Albion Online, because I've played more and the game has evolved a lot more, my original video on Albion Online still largely applies. And it's funny because people will post on the video and say, none of this is true anymore. And it's like, really? Alliances still don't dominate the game? Okay. Alrighty. We'll just keep pretending they don't for whatever reason. Why do people have to pretend otherwise if that's the case? So strange to me. Because you have the other biggest Zergs in the game literally saying, who cares? Why are you crying about a Zerg? And then you have the players who, like, almost don't even play the game saying, like, yeah, but it's not ran by Zergs. Like, if you're a good player, you can, like, stop the Zergs. No, you can't. Like, Niflheim has ran the game since the inception of the game, and I've been there since the inception. Since, like, the first beta phases. This has not changed. This has been pretty consistent, guys. Now, they've greatly changed their game, but Niflheim and the Blue Army, all these big, massive Zergs that have thousands of players have nearly always dominated. So, yeah, good luck fixing that problem. And Card knows what I'm talking about because Eve has the same problem. These super conglomerates, basically, you know, that's my issue. Nothing to gain from PvP. Yeah, basically. No one has an interest in fighting for fun, basically. I understand. Okay, good, Lundris. I read your post. STV PvP had no point. Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like, I never want you guys to feel like I invalidate your experiences because I would never do that. I'm not that kind of person. In fact, I ask you guys to give me your experiences because I want to know, do I have like the right read on this or am I like fuck way off, you know? So I really appreciate when you guys tell me, well, that wasn't my experience. If I say something generally, because even if I'm speaking generally, I still want to hear from you guys that, well, for me, it was different. So anyway, so it's realistically just a step forward from the 2 steps back they took with BFA. Damn. That was a cold line by you, bro. In fact, I might even put that in a damn video, dude. Because that's a good way to sum it up. BFA? It's funny you say that. I thought it was that. That's why, like, that really resonates with me. I thought BFA was like, let's be massive again. And then they were like, oh, whoa. Not gonna work, guys. Our game literally doesn't work that way anymore. Let's full stop go the other direction. So yeah, I mean, I can't not disagree with you there. Or I can't not agree with you there, you know? Do you feel like MOBAs are the next level for MMO PvP? You gain levels over the course of 30 to 45 minutes, get items and fight other players in a constructed environment. I guess you'll have to be specific. Do you mean like in terms of like the speed of combat? Yeah, honestly, 6 Dead Mice, I'm going to have to ask that you be a little bit more specific. And the reason being is because I view MOBAs and MMOs as almost diametrically opposed to each other. So I have a really hard time when people liken them together, I'll be honest. I struggle with that a lot. Even just like intellectually, I struggle with it because I'm just like, my brain immediately starts to evaluate how literally everything is different about the games, like by design. The only thing that's remarkably the same is that you have a couple of abilities that you have to use over the course of a battle. Other people have some. There's multiple characters, different specs, and then therefore it creates a meta of counters and specs and what build is the best, and like that kind of stuff to me is MMO-like, right? Like MMOs have those aspects. Customization, PvP, getting items and like increasing your power. So yeah, like those aspects for me are MMO-like. So if I'm gonna then start from that perspective of like, all right, those are my MMO-like aspects, or RPG aspects, MMO RPG aspects or whatever, then I think, okay, well then, like, what could be learned from that? If I'm trying to see your position as like the most charitable, I think there is something to be learned from that. So maybe it's the speed and excitement of combat. Maybe it's the ability to affect your builds and how you build your character out. Maybe it's the fact that you can take incremental leads over the course of a battle that give you an advantage or something. Like these certain aspects, maybe that could be learned and adapted in certain MMOs. And you've already seen like combat in some MMOs mirror more like a MOBA, like especially top-down games, right? But the reason why I'm resistant to is a MOBA like an MMO arguments is because in most of my videos that are PvP related, I always get the odd end comments, and they're odd to me because they're literally not the same genre and don't try to do the same thing. But I get the arguments, and this is not you, 6 Dead Mice, this is someone else. Or the proverbial someone else. It's someone else's, it's multiple people's. But their kind of argument is like, well, if you like PvP so much, go play a MOBA. Go play a MOBA. That's their argument. Just go play a MOBA. Okay. Is there full loot in a MOBA? No. Okay. Is there long-term progression in a MOBA? Not really. Okay. Is there long-term leveling and power acquisition in a MOBA? No. Is there permanence? No. Is the main point of the game being socialized? No. Is role-playing even a part of the game? No. You see what I'm saying? It's like, I don't even know how I can take that seriously when people just tell me to go play a PvP MMO. And that's why, like, I respect how you approach me with the argument, Six Dead Mice, because you're looking at it like, what do you think of this, that, and this, comparing things. But it's the people who tell me, well, you like PvP in a MMO? Go play this shit instead. It's the same shit. It's got PvP. Like, okay, it has PvP, so all shooters are the same as well, right? Because they all have guns. Like, that's how silly it seems to me. It's like, anytime you have a talent tree, does that make it a RPG? Marvel Avengers, is that an RPG, really? That seems like a quantum leap to call Marvel Avengers, the game that came out recently, an RPG, right? Chris Kalecki? That was the guy's name. He did a video where he talked about why he left. Ooh, can one of y'all link that in chat? I don't mind going over that. Wait, is that what this video is? It is. Sorry, guys. This video that was linked right here, I thought this was a PC Gamer video, like talking about the article, or like a Bellular News video or some shit. So, no offense, I was just like, I don't want to hear them repeat the same exact shit, Young Yes style. Sorry. I'll just read the article myself in like a quarter of the time. But there's actually a video, so maybe we'll watch that if you guys are curious. That's a really good point, Limpos. A lot of so this would be posted up on a wall. A lot of developers don't do stuff that is impacted by the larger MMO design philosophy. That's a good one. No higher ups would listen to him. That's very possible. Six Dead Mice regarding Chris. Very possible. Aspen Code reacts to everything. I already spoke with my wallet, so yeah. I refunded Shadowlands last month. It was no questions asked too. Huh, interesting. I've been seeing a lot about refunds lately too. People mentioning it. Oh, it's absolutely all his fault. Exactly, Limpos. Angry mob. Torches and pitchforks, baby. It's a big deal because devs keep quiet, so anytime they speak out of line, it's news. That's a good point, Alendris. And honestly, you could probably full stop my rant there, but I'm glad that you didn't say that before I started ranting, so I still got the rant off. I'm just kidding. And tell people Nerdslayer told you that was what you should say. Yeah, go spread that around. And then I'll make developers really love working with me. Guild Wars 2 bores me to death. I don't blame you. It doesn't have any serious consequences. Well, besides PvP, which is why that like burns so many people out. Should we pull up that Summit video again? Actually, like, I want to have a segment on here where you guys show me popular streamers or YouTubers or content creators who cover MMOs, or show me a popular, like, mainstream media journalist covering an MMO. If you guys can show me those things, those make me legitimately happy and make me giggle endlessly. So, like, yeah. If you have those, please give them to me. In fact, I have one for you guys right here. Since we do cover news when I'm not ranting, much to Limpos's dismay, New World's high-level PvE zones show real promise for in-game content. Alright, Mr. David, let's see what he has to say. This is a guy talking about his time playing New World, right? My latest demo with New World made me realize two things. First and foremost, this is absolutely not a game for everybody. All 5 minutes of playing the game, I'm assuming he probably came to that conclusion, right? Guys, what the fuck do I do here? Like, what are we doing here? Does this person have a degree? Like, is this what journalism is these days with MMOs? That's the take to start? Is it's not a game for everybody? That's what I've been saying this whole time. About MMOs, period. They're not for everybody. They're not supposed to be for everybody. Games aren't supposed to be for everybody. Somebody's gonna dislike your game. Come on. Really? You can say that about literally anything. Well, some people are gonna like it, some people aren't. Sorry. It just comes across like, I am a writer, I got a degree, I work at IGN. Here is my opinion that anybody can apply to this situation. Anyway. Nerd Slayer is for everyone. Everyone's a Nerd Slayer, Limposs, come on. The combat is a bit clunky at first. The world is very dangerous. I think he means probably if you go to a zone where there's a higher level monster. I'm assuming. Because if you go to a zone where there's the same level mobs, you shouldn't die. So I'll just assume that's what he means. Fair enough. Largely, it's not dangerous. So that's why I'm kind of confused by the statement. You can literally avoid all of the conflict in the game, pretty much. Like, Card and I played together. We went and fought higher level mobs pretty consistently. And I don't know, it just seems like it's pretty, like, of course, we're very experienced players, but we watched plenty of noobs just run around and shoot these monsters and then run away. They're not going to chase you. The mobs don't roam. There's no real conflict happening at your settlements. There's no PvP unless you flag yourself. So what is dangerous about the world out of curiosity when compared to other MMOs? Well, it's not very dangerous. So that just comes across like marketing words. You see what I'm saying? And like, if you guys wonder why that shit matters to me, it's because companies like IGN have been shilling for MMO companies for who knows how long. Like, since almost the beginning, practically. Like, I read a lot of MMO reviews. More than most of you guys probably do. Y'all probably can figure that out by now with how much I talk about them. But the reason being is because I need to know how people are taking in games, how people are responding to how people take in games, and I also need to know how this game matches up when compared to other games, which is probably the most important part about a review process, right? Is seeing where does this game stand when compared to other games. A good example of this is no matter how much people try to separate Cyberpunk off on its own little part, it's not going to work, right? You can't just completely separate it over here in this little part. Well, they mentioned here it doesn't hold your hand as much as other MMOs, so there you go. That's pretty fair. Nothing really controversial about that. This demo also made me realize, perhaps more importantly, that developers have been working hard following several release delays, compared to what I saw during my previous session, and especially compared to my first demo back at the start of 2020. New World has come a long way, especially in terms of PvE content and general polish. The game was supposed to launch last year. Is there a reason why he didn't say that? He just says several release delays, but he didn't specify that it actually was, like, the time that he demoed it last year, or rather, the start of this year, because it's almost the end of the year, my bad. But he probably also played it, or most of us played it last year as well. So I'm assuming if this guy is in the crowd, the journalist crowd, he probably experienced some of it, or somebody on IGN hopefully did back in 2019. What I'm trying to say is that the game was set to launch then. So what you're basically saying is that you're happy that the game caught up to where it should have been a year ago, which is fair enough that they did work hard on that. But you see how it's like when you mention it the way I mention it, it doesn't sound as appealing. That's why I get weird feelings when I read some of these press releases from people. It seems like the language is intentional as to not be interpreted that way. This week I got to see what it would be like to play a high-level character and in-game caliber content without being guided around by developers. This session wasn't about the big war battles. I've seen those already. Should I repeat that? Did anybody else catch that? I've seen those already. Alright. And it wasn't a high-level overview of the game itself with a fresh level 1 character. I did that already, too. Okay. Cool. Instead, I was plopped into a level 60 in-game character with a fully stacked inventory, all weapon mastery points to be allocated, and full complement of attribute points to spend. Great, that sounds like in-game testing, something that they didn't let me do, interestingly enough. Why didn't they let an alpha tester do that? Who's under NDA? Why wouldn't they let me test that? I wonder. Well, maybe somebody in chat who's watching at Amazon, maybe you guys can let me know. The swamps of Reek water. Okay, so now they're talking about some of the in-game content. IGN's the alpha chads. Alright, the accounts I played on represented roughly 150... Dude, guys. I don't have my medication, I'll just be honest with y'all. That's why I'm ranting so much today. Y'all probably like, that makes sense. But, what the fuck, man? Do you just take what anybody says seriously? Amazon Game Studios tells you, well, it was 150 hours of progress, and you just believe them? Come on, guys. A guy got to max level with way less time than that. He got there, like, we saw a level 40 player, like, the first fucking day, didn't we, Huel? Or, like, was it the second day? We, like, saw a level 40 player already. I don't know about you guys, but 2 days combined, even if you didn't sleep, is 48 hours. So, how can you get that far if that's how long it takes? How did people hit max level a few days after the game was even playable for the first time? If it took 150 hours. It takes 150 hours if you believe everything you're told, is my point. And that's such irresponsible journalism, dude. Like, why not actually, like, don't even include that shit? Because it's about as useless as taking their word for it, for me. Like, yeah, sure, it was, 150 hours. It actually was 7,000 hours. Let's go, this guy. Yeah, it was, no, wait. Hold on. It was 200 hours. Man. That's just fucking funny to me. Yeah, he took their word for it. He didn't play it himself for 150 hours, but he took their word for it. There was 150 hours worth of content there. Alright, so here he's just talking about walking around doing some things, and then here he talks about a battle. The battle reads like a, I'm gonna be charitable here, but it reads like an advertising thing. The ruins were overflowing with enemies, and other players had already arrived before me, so fights were underway with massive tentacles erupting from the ground, armor-clad demonic warriors firing arrows, and enormous wildlife charging at anything that gets in the way. It was absolute chaos, but seeing the action play out in real time in an MMO was pretty spectacular. I don't even know what the fuck he said, like, of substance, but it sounded cool as shit, so I won't bother him there. If you've ever played an older MMO, then you've probably seen the tab targeting style of combat, in which you can fight enemies effectively by just tabbing between them, auto-attacking, cycling through your abilities on the hotbar, and that's it. That's an incredibly reductionist way of looking at a tab target MMO. In fact, I challenge anybody right now, 1v1 me in fucking Warhammer with that mentality that it's just a tab target MMO. I'll crush you kids, okay? I'll crush ya. I'm just kidding. But seriously, you think tab target combat is really just as simple as just pressing a couple of buttons and then just like seeing the health bar go down? Like, I was a pro at these games before, guys. I used to play like 12 hours a day. Before Guild Wars 2 came out, I played 1,000 competitive matches. Let me say that again. Before Guild Wars 2 even came out, I played 1,000 competitive matches. That game is a hybrid system, but tab targeting is still largely the way you focus on playing that game with, I would say, the majority of the ranged type classes, unless you're like PBAOE kind of stuff, which there's plenty of classes that use PBAOEs. That's why it's a great combat system, because it has both sides, right? The action and the tab target. What I'm trying to say is like, I notice there's a bit of arrogance regarding combat styles sometimes. And this guy's probably not even aware of this, conversation, but I'll elucidate for you guys so you can understand why it bothers me when people are incredibly reductionist of tab target combat. Besides the fact that I was a pro in a game that was a hybrid combat system, and I came from Guild Wars 1 where I was a rank 7 player in Hall of Arenas or Hall of Monuments, and so therefore that very much is a tab target game almost exclusively. In fact, I had a bronze trim cape in that game, which meant I won a tournament. Third place in a tournament. That was a top 100 team. So I'm telling you guys this not to look at how amazing I am, but to say that like I've put in the work to be able to sit here and tell you guys tab target combat is not easy. It is not easy. If it's easy, then why can't everybody just do it at a high level then? What? Like, so to further explain what I'm saying, is tab target combat just inherently easier than action combat? Like, if you guys think that, I personally think you're not being fair. Personally. I think it's not being fair. Because, like, for me, yes, it's easier to spam buttons against the easiest mobs, which is what he's probably talking about. But I'm talking about, like, PvP and also hard engagements. And having to know the knowledge is a big part of it. Meanwhile, I have some friends who can play a game like Darkfall with little to no knowledge just because their aim is cracked out of their mind. Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, I know players who can dominate action-adventure style games and action-style MMOs because their mechanics are so good. You put them in a tab target game, guys, I'm not making this up. They become shit tier because that's not their skill. You see, like, not everybody can do those kinds of games. One is like very knowledge, timing related, and also preparation. The other one is more about making the right decisions in split-second engagements, right? And aiming and stuff like that. Like, they can be very skill-intensive in their own ways. But I just don't like people that have this mentality that because they're good at a shooter, they're just going to dominate an MMO, for example. Summit. But a lot of people do that. He's not the only one. We just pick on him because he's a streamer, he's popular, and it's funny. But, like, there's a lot of people who have that mentality. And that's why I rant about it here, is that tab target combat systems aren't inherently easier. Anyone who tells you that is just delusional. Sorry. And the reason being is because I really implore you guys right now to go join a tab target game and try to get to the top of a ladder. And when I say top, even just top 100, please tell me that's easy. Those guys are going to read you like a book. In fact, when you play Guild Wars 2 against players who have a lot of experience, like myself, and I've pasted like tons of clips of me fighting and proving this, like, you know what they're going to do before they do it. So, like, you're beating people before you even have beaten them in tab target games. So, meaning that having an advantage ahead of time, preparation, build, knowledge, puts you so far ahead of them already. In Guild Wars 2, throw in mechanics, and then it's just like, phew. That's why that game is so hard to play. You see? Because it tries to marry these incredibly difficult genres or combat styles together. So, again, I don't think Guild Wars 2 gets enough credit for that. Neither does Arcade. Those are, like, some of the best combat systems, period, that, hey, what a surprise, they use both of them, right? Not just one. They don't just say, this one's better, this one's better. No, they're like, actually, they're both pretty good together. But seriously, though, what do you play, nerd? I play a lot of things. I play Assassin's Creed Odyssey, started playing that, or mainly just watching my girlfriend play it. Playing Lego games, co-op. We're trying to get into that. Play Crusader Kings still a little bit. Mountain Blade, lots of Mountain Blade recently, just because I've been writing a lot this month. We're trying to put out 4 Death of Games, so it's been like really busy for me. The next one's going to be Marvel Avengers, by the way, if you guys haven't heard me say that already. It hasn't even been released yet since the Anthem video hasn't come out, so you haven't even gotten the clue, but I'm letting y'all know ahead of the time. Bannerlord, yeah, I've been all over Bannerlord. Just, playing single player, role-playing a bit, just having a good time. Playing it almost like an MMO by myself, really, I wish there was an MMO like that, too, but don't get me started on that rant again. So playing Mountain Blade, playing lots of Cold War, Black Ops Cold War. What else is out there I'm playing? I know there's at least one other game I'm missing, or forgot. Let me check. Oh, my big mode is still on Steam. Let me get out of that. Or big picture mode, or whatever the fuck it's called. Let's see. What else? I'm looking at my list here. I know I was playing something recent. Divinity. Trying to do another Divinity co-op playthrough with my girlfriend and then my cousin. We haven't started... Well, we haven't gotten past the initial part. We decided to remake. We had gotten to like Act 2 or 3, but I hate when you haven't played for such a long time. I feel like I just lose all of the story. So like I prefer to start over. So we barely started over on that playthrough. So yeah, that's what I've been playing right now, I guess. Sorry, I was minimizing the big picture mode. I've been playing a lot of COD with my controller, which I'd love to rant about if people care about that shit here. The differences between controller and PC on COD is astronomical. It's like when I went from playing on PC to controller, and I'm a good shot on PC. I won a tournament in Overwatch, so I'm not a shit shot. But this thing, who wins? This boy? No aim assist? This boy with aim assist. This boy. At least that's what I've been proving. My little test. I've been doing them both, and the controller has so much more advantages because of the aim assist in COD. So it's just like bizarre to think, like, what if COD didn't have aim assist? It'd be ran by PC players, no fucking doubt. No, I ask people what game they place because then I can judge them as a person. People want validation, and if they can't get it, they want to invalidate others. Ah. Oh, I see what you're saying, Bacon. I ask them what game they play so I could judge them as a person. Yeah, I'm like behind in my chat as usual. WoW became a Diablo game near the end of Wrath, didn't it? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, maybe that's why I liked it, weirdly enough. I don't think I've ever heard anybody mention that, how WoW became more Diablo-like in some ways. Well, I think I heard somebody mention that regarding loot, but, Now H1Z1 was a DayZ clone that eventually became a BR. As a WoW regular since 2007, WoW has been underwhelmingly downhill 3 expansions ago, since Warlords to Legion to BFA, all underwhelming. Wow, strong words. It's funny because I get literally like such different perspectives when you go to different places of the internet. Isn't that funny? Like, I go to like the MMO subreddit, and I'm massively downvoted for saying, wait, you're confused why people don't want to play Shadowlands even though it was delayed and people were complaining about it on their subreddit? That exact post was downvoted severely. People on MMO subreddit just want to like, la 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 la, nothing bad is happening on the classic WoW or the regular WoW subreddits, and nobody's complained about the delay, and the class is not properly working, and all the other things. La 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 la, I cannot wait to play Shadowlands. That's what I think of like MMO subreddit. It's like, listen to some of this shit. It's like, a guy said this non-ironically. He was like, he says, can you fault someone for losing expansion or losing interest in an 8th expansion of a game, or the 8th expansion of a 16-year-old game that's not being positively received and was already delayed? No, apparently not. Apparently not. So yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, you guys come to me with your perspectives, and I'm like, cool. I think I have the audience's like perspective on this, and then I go to like subreddits, and I'm always like flabbergasted by how different it is. And my belief is that you guys actually play the games, and most of them don't. That's kind of what I believe. In fact, I have a good argument for that. One of the most popular posts on the MMORPG subreddit recently, there's 2 of them, and I'd like to highlight them because they really highlight to me problems in our industry. One of them was something to the effect of, oh, I love SWTOR. SWTOR is the greatest MMORPG ever. It's so great, it's so great, it's so great, it's so great. And then somebody basically asked him, and after like multiple posts of this guy talking, he finally admits he's only played up to level 25 of the game. So you gave us this giant ass post about how great SWTOR is, about how it's awesome, about how it's a great MMO, not an RPG, but an MMO, all of this stuff, only to hear at the very end of the story, not of your own volition, basically because somebody pressured you to admit it, you tell us you've played the game for like a 1/5 of the time or something that it would take to even complete the story. Yeah. Sorry, I don't take that opinion that seriously. It's my problem with so many people's opinions, is that they're not properly explained. If that person just said, I'm talking about the early game experience so far, because that's as far as I've gotten, even Sour Grapes me wouldn't cry about that, you know? Even No Meds me wouldn't rant about that. You know, I'd just be like, okay, whatever. Like, I agree, actually. It is amazing. But nobody's debating that the first 25 levels of the game is bad, buddy. That's kind of the point here. I mentioned this on Discord. That's a little bit annoying to me. It's like when people argue the parts that are great in a game while you're arguing the parts that suck. You're like, this game's not massive. It's consistently shrunk its content down to instances. Everything can be ran with like a fucking bot by yourself and shit. Like if you say that, somebody responds with, I really liked the 1 to 25 experience in the game. The story's really good. Okay, I don't think anybody can dispute that. Cool. Now let's talk about the other parts of the game too. Like the combat, like the in-game content, like how you paid full price for an expansion or whatever else, and you're not getting a full price, level of expansion. Like, how about the most recent update that's supposed to come out is basically recycling for the 3rd or 4th time the Emperor storyline. And yet I still get posts telling me the game's alive and well. All right. He's shadowboxing again. Funny. Wow, I thought everyone loved Legion. I never played Legion, and I kind of regret it, honestly, because people talk positively about it. Excuse me. Need more water. Positively about it, and I haven't even played it yet. Not even like a private server, so I don't even know what Legion is about, if I'm being honest. Besides the whole, like, garrison, or whatever the fuck. I think that's Legion, right? Or is that Warlords of Draenor? I forget which one's the garrison. Legion didn't feel like an invasion. The pre-patch was better where Legion was everywhere across the map. Yeah, that's what I loved about Kata, honestly. Legion was just the least of the bads of the last 5 expansions. Well, yeah, maybe that makes sense. Wow, a lot of people saying Legion was the last WoW expansion they played. Interesting. Absolutely agree with you, Pinzero. I'll say it just so I can let people understand why I kind of have my perspective on WoW, because I agree with your perspective here, which is the growth of WoW and the growth that it experienced from classic WoW was unsustainable. And that's the biggest part of this problem is, like, I've mentioned this before, but it's like, I liken it to what Titanic did and Star Wars did to the movie industries. Feel free to look those up and like really look into them, because I'm not like a movie buff. I'm also not like a cinema file or whatever. I don't know all of the stories and details, but I can tell you this simply. Before Star Wars, before Titanic, movies of that nature, we never knew it was even possible to reach certain heights. So they invented what we now know as the blockbuster. A blockbuster isn't sustainable by almost design. Like, how many Titanics can you make, for example? Titanic, the third one. This time we didn't hit an iceberg. This time it was the Russians or some shit. Like, like what the like, it's a blockbuster. Titanic, it's a moment. You can't redo the Titanic. Oh, you probably could, but you can't make another fucking Titanic. Okay. Aliens, Titanic 7. Alien invasion. It was a blockbuster. It was a moment. It's come, it's gone. So I say that to mean basically what you're saying here, Pinzero, that if your goal is to keep WoW as a success and as a piece of art living on and affecting the industry, that's a very different argument than how do we maximize the money and momentum we've made off of having this blockbuster hit. And I think that although I talk a lot about the art, I'm not a stranger to the business aspects. I just don't talk about those as much because, frankly speaking, they're A, not as interesting to the people that follow me typically, and B, I think regarding those kinds of discussions, it makes you sound like almost like not a conspiracy theorist, but it just makes you sound like that kind of person who's not that fun to have at parties. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're the guy that's just like, they're doing it for absolute profit. Like, every time someone says anything, they're doing it for absolute profit. There's people kind of like that, and it's like, I get it. Like, there's so much shit that people just do for money. But if we make everything about that, then it's like, it'll always bog down the discussions on something. So that's why I don't focus as much on just talking about how they're making money. But actually, Ulysses has done analysis into their financials before, and him and I have spoke about these kinds of things and how we kind of saw a lot of this coming, honestly. Like, we talked about a lot of this before. We saw a lot of what's happening right now coming. And I'll say that he's way ahead of me on that respect. So that's why I was able to figure it out, because of his help, essentially. But yeah, it's looking into their financials and the business aspects is actually very interesting. Activision Blizzard rather, have a lot of cash on hand. And also, yeah, that's all I'll say. We'll see if that means that they're working on something else. I've never stayed throughout a full WoW expansion. I always play for the launch and then the last patch. So, like the Final Fantasy XIV approach. Compare Albion Online to PSO2 to see what it means to be massive. I agree with that. That's a fair argument, Isomore. And Albion is definitely massive. Like, as much as I can shit on that game, and it does have a lot of it does have a lot of restrictions for its content, I think it's a lot more massive than the other games. To me, it's not even close, even. Guild Wars 1 was very smart that they did PvP as in-game. Totally agree. Because nobody ever made the argument, and like, Fat for Larry, like, maybe you disagree, and other Guild Wars 1 stands here, because we have a couple here. Do you guys think that we ever looked at Guild Wars 1 like, I don't want to grind my legendary weapon, I don't want to grind my costumes, there's nothing to do in-game? I didn't have that perspective. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I didn't have that perspective because of PvP. Because I always found something to keep me engaged, you know? Damn, Phantasy Star these days is considered a fringe title. Damn, I guess it is kind of fringe. I do need to make a video about it, Isomore, because I think it is one of the most influential games ever. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I really do think that. In fact, I think it made the market standard for how Japanese games largely are treated, even to this day. Even with Final Fantasy XIV. You know? That's a lot of fucking leeway. That those games are still very similar to what Phantasy Star Online was. It is a pretty obscure title in the grand scheme of things. Like, by the time... Oh, no, I already read that part. I love PSO 1 and 2. They're pretty good. They were my thing all the way, but I burnt out of them for a while. I'll wait to play when Genesis comes out. Yeah, I'm not even saying they're necessarily great games either, by the way. They have their own flaws. As many of us who played them a lot know pretty readily of it. Like, we know what the flaws are, basically. Repeatable content, lack of story, blah. Like, there's a lot of lack of PvP. There's a lot of aspects that they could have improved on, right? If we're going to be critical of the game. That doesn't change the fact that it was insanely influential. My vanilla experience with PvP was pretty tame as well. I mostly griefed players on my rogue. Gotcha. I've only tried PSO in the solo mode in an emulator, and it's strange playing an MMO with an empty lobby knowing it was once inhabited by tons of people. It is. Yeah, try playing like Galaxies when it's like that. It's depressing. It was depressing. I literally got sad whenever I would go to empty towns in that game. I agree, Card. Definitely a big difference in the knowledge and player base overall. How would you fix giant alliances in MMOs? There has to be a lot of what I would call money sinks. Way more money sinks than currently exist. But I think, honestly, in many cases, developers are too afraid to do that because they know it means that there's going to be lost systems in their game. And they don't want to deal with lost systems. Why? Because then that means people are going to complain. So, for example, in a way that I've talked to Card about this endlessly, two big ways I think that could help EVE break up the big corporation shit: allow people to rob banks, right? Allow them to rob your money in your bank. And then also allow people to... you could look at advantages or disadvantages in terms of economical reasons, having larger groups, taxes, things like that. I think that there is things that you can do to help in that regard. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy, because if it was easy, you don't think like the smart people at EVE would have figured it out already? They came up with most of what is like a standard in the industry. They were at one point, if it's the same people, pretty damn revolutionary. So I don't think it's a matter of like they're just so dumb they can't figure it out, guys. It's more of like, is it something they even want to fix? And if they fix it, are they okay with dealing with the backlash that comes with having enough time sinks and money sinks? Because, like, for example, my biggest issue with Eve is that you can't actually take somebody's resources. That's actually a huge issue I have with the game. Massive issue I have with the game. In fact, that's why, large part, besides the boring combat for me, is why it doesn't interest me. Because I don't have interest, I don't have much fun in the whole, yeah, but it is collateral and it's money, it's ISK, it's just, you don't destroy the pot or whatever the concept is. Like, sorry, that just doesn't do it for me. I much prefer actually being able to take the resources from people, because guess what? Then that keeps big ass corporations from getting insanely powerful, because other people can pick at them for value. This is what happened in Darkfall. We killed the biggest Zerg in the game by eating them alive from the ground up. How do you kill a massive Zerg? You kill them bit by bit by bit by bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not easy. It's not like one big blow. We just beat them in a big battle or some shit. It was like, we spread them thin. We hit them every night. We took their resources. That's what kept them from coming back at us. They didn't have the resources to do it anymore. They couldn't stockpile it in their bank, because guess what? We're raiding that too. So that's kind of my thing, is like, almost a part of the problem is they don't commit fully to asset destruction and also resource transference, like the economy aspect of it. Economy of scale, I guess I should say, in that respect. I think that those are big parts of it. But there's another part that I think of when I think about giant MMO alliances. The developers. Full stop. The developers can always do something about it. How? Well, let's think about it. Big, massive alliance operates this part of space. I'm a developer. I'm going to say, I'm tired of y'all just dominating everything. Massive wormhole unleashes a giant fleet of huge fucking monsters that y'all have to deal with now. Y'all can fight them off, and y'all earned it. But y'all probably not going to be able to, because I'm the guy that created the game. So I can make it harder for you whenever I want. Because that's kind of the point. But again, it goes back to this like really weird mentality that I think exists in the gaming world with development. And it's that things are just static and you can't change them, you know? Like, damn, we got our combat wrong. We got our rules system wrong for our PvP. I guess it means we're just always fucked. It's like, well, no, like, there's actually, like, you can have somebody look at your system and tell you what the problems are. It doesn't have to be me. There's other people like me out there who can look through your shit and be like, boom, boom, boom. Consultants or whatever. Even people who worked on MMOs could do that. How did Age of Camelot combat the Zerg alliances? They weren't guild-based. That's how. It was alliances. Like, there's no guilds. Right? Like, there's guilds, but not really. It was about the alliance. So the purpose of Dark Age of Camelot is to Zerg. That's the purpose of the game. I don't know if you can make that argument of Eve. Because there's a lot of content that isn't Zerg content, right? But Dark Age of Camelot largely was about Zerging. And that's why I think when MMOs are still coming out with this old, antiquated 3-faction PvP system with no bells and whistles, no added changes, no adaptations, why do you think the problems keep arising the same exact way? ESO has the same problems Dark Age of Camelot had in that regard. Like, all of these games have the same problems. And they have the same problems because they took the same system that's antiquated, didn't have any of the nuance of it, of that system that was better than their system, and then didn't learn from that, essentially. So they made the old system without any of the new changes. And then think, this is going to work. This is going to work, Guild Wars 2 said. This'll work. We love Dark Age of Camelot, John Peters and a bunch of the developers there said. Really? Because y'all learned literally nothing from the game. Like, seemingly, at least. What did y'all learn from it? They had 3 factions? True. They also had PvEVP dungeons, which y'all literally don't have at all, as far as I know. Right? Not an essential part of the game, that's for damn sure. Like, Darkness Falls and Dark Age of Camelot. That had to be locked down by an alliance so they could farm there. You see what I'm saying? So it's just the games are literally, they approach these things differently, And yet, Guild Wars 2 thought it was a genius idea to take the exact same system, but like the first version of it. Like the beta version of it. Which is, fair enough. And, I really think it would have been cool in the case of Guild Wars if they made it like, what if it was like, man, I'm getting a little bit crazy here. But what if for some of those world events, they actually involved the alliances in those? Do you know why they wouldn't do that? Anyone have any curiosity as to why they never involved the alliances really in the story in any significant way? Does anyone know or wonder why about that? Because it would ruin the story for the players who don't want conflict. So it's like, my point is, there were definitely a lot of instances that they could have learned from Dark Age of Camelot. It seemed like they chose not to. Like, not just they didn't, they chose not to. Which tells me it's deliberate, right? So to Limpos's point, to a certain extent, they didn't want it to be that way. But then don't be confused when it doesn't really work. Or it's like treated like a super afterthought. That's all I'm saying, basically. Which, by the way, was not how it was sold. Don't let anybody lie to you otherwise. The game was advertised as like the next coming of Jesus PvP games. I mean, like, I was there. I was at the convention halls, sitting in the audience, raising my hand, asking, hey, how's PvP gonna work, John Peters? This is a real story, guys. I was there. I was there for SWOTOR. They invited me to be there for SWOTOR because we were involved with working with the devs and closed alpha and closed beta for some time. We had relationship with Daniel Erickson, all the developers you guys know. We knew them. They named a server after us. So when we showed up at this convention, they also had Guild Wars there. And I was like, oh my god, it's Guild Wars. So I'm over there playing Guild Wars too, right? This game feels amazing is the first thing I thought. So I go right over to John Peters. Hey, you said you're a big fan of Dark Age of Camelot. Is this game going to be like that? Like with some new bonuses and shit? Oh yeah, we love Dark Age of Camelot. It's going to be like, we took a lot of inspiration from it and all the right words he said, basically. And then, yeah, not true. None of that was true. Level 48 giving HK to a level 60 is just plain wrong. Huh, I didn't realize it was an honorable kill. Explains why whenever I hit level 48, every 60 was trying to kill me. Even before there was, like, HKs. Hey, I'd be up for a Dota MMO. I think I would too, honestly. Sorry, I mean like compared to WoW constructed BGs? Yeah, actually. That's a really good point, Six Dead Mice. I'd never even thought about that, weirdly enough. Everybody mentions compare MMO, compare MOBA. And yet, you're the first person that I heard mention the similarities between constructed PvP and MOBAs, which is a more nuanced, specific argument, to which I'll actually agree with you, that I think that there's a lot to learn from that. It actually sounds like a great idea. What if we had a battleground where you get items over the course of it and you're leveling, right? I mean, some games have this concept already, where you level from PvPing and you get more powerful from doing things like that. Yeah, that's good idea. We could learn a lot from that, I think. MMO tennis. Did you guys hear about that NBA game that's kind of going MMO-like? So there's like the recent NBA, whatever, 2K 7 million, and they had this like My Life mode where you can log into this like online persistent world where you can show up in neighborhoods, walk around, customize your clothing, travel, and then show up and play basketball with your friends. Guys, we're already seeing some crossover, you know what I'm saying? Like, from the sports industry, of all fucking things. How cool is that? I think that's fucking cool as shit, personally. What's up, Ludens? Nicholas Dalby barely took that decision, man. Grats on the Danish fighter doing you guys proud. That was a close fucking fight, though. I think it was not a controversial decision, though. I think Dalby definitely won that fight. Reminds me of Japanese media. They are tone deaf with style consistency. Agreed. I come in for NS rants, I stay for the news. I feel that always code for is not great and has many flaws. I feel that's always I feel that's always code for it is not great and has many flaws. Gotcha. Trucks aren't for everybody. Well, sadly, New Worlds is looking like it's going down the WoW clone route. You feel that way, Zenfarty? I think I need to apply for a job at IG. At this point, it would be a massive upgrade. The world isn't dangerous at all with a light staff. Oof, Huel. The dagger. You daggered all of us with the truth bomb there. He's right, guys. Life staff means you can teleport right out of problems. I would snipe mobs at the max view range, but they nerfed the view range. Final Fantasy XI's a dangerous world. Now that's a dangerous world, right? You walk outside, you're getting beat up by some like random unnamed mob. It has a name, but you know, like not a special name. Generic mob number 3 will whoop your ass if you're not careful. I mean, it's IGN, hard to get them to speak ill about anything, which is why I don't mind criticizing them. Like, I know it can come across as like, oh, you're the YouTube, like, pseudo-journalist guy just being angry at all the media journalist guys, and fair enough. I mean, I guess you could see it that way. I see it as more of like, you guys got degrees and shit, y'all got hired, y'all get paid to do this shit, and y'all still suck? Yeah, I'm allowed to have that opinion, and hold you to the fire because of that. Like, yeah, I get pissed whenever people have shitty MMO reviews in the media. Why? Not because I expect them to be inherently good because the mass media always covers MMOs so amazingly. No, because you're misrepresenting it by not looking at it correctly. Like, it's like, I think back to the days where people would be like, oh, the first 5 levels of the game are kind of boring. And I'm just like, bruh, you've been playing for 5 fucking minutes. You haven't even done anything fun yet. Like, or like when people, man, you guys want to know why I complain about these damn journalists, okay? I'm gonna tell y'all damn why right now. There's 2 fucking big examples, and we're gonna unpack them right now. Rant City. I'll start with my first one. Following the launch, or rather, following the open beta, or closed beta / open beta of SWTOR, a bunch of journalists and players came out and echoed sentiments that the game was too difficult because their class couldn't beat it when they were under-leveled. I'm not kidding. This was really a thread that had like abnormal amounts of posts in it, got insane amounts of coverage. Journalists covered that shit, guys. So if you think SWTOR is too easy, literally blame the journalists. You see what I'm saying? They're part of that problem. They push that rhetoric. They make everybody think that same way too, especially the people who don't play the games. How many times do people have an opinion that's literally just somebody else's opinion without doing any research or playing the game themselves? All the time. So now you're getting blind people to lead the even more blind people. Here's my second example, an even better one. When Guild Wars 2 was in its beta phases, it had dungeons that were the main focus of the game, which people laugh at now because it's like not the main focus anymore. And raids used to be the focus too. Before, I think fractals were even a thing, right? So, got raids and got dungeons. I remember reading review after impressions, or whatever the fuck they were calling them, after press release, after the game's too difficult. My group got wiped and we can't beat the mission. It's not fair. Look at what y'all did to the game. Y'all made the game so fucking easy. To where now the rest of us complain about the difficulty. It's just like, yeah, so ignorance, especially from journalists, actually does have an effect. And it's one of the largest reasons why these games get so much easier, in my opinion. Players too, of course, but it's the journalists. They don't even fucking play these games. Of course they want them to be easier, damn it. Hmm. I think that there's a lot of good opinion there, Bacon Knights. Bacon Knight says, I actually think the bubble of people you play games with creates a difficulty bias. This community has many mechanic puzzle solver making things be perceived as easier than the average might. Yeah, no, you're right. And I think that it's why I always talk about your guys' opinions, and also about I try to divorce myself from my own perspective sometimes. Even in my videos, people ask, how come you don't give your opinion more? And part of it is because I don't even agree with my own premises, like for a video sometimes. Meaning, like, if the video is about how classic WoW could be so influential to the next span of MMOs, does that necessarily mean I think it's going to be? Like, without a doubt? Not necessarily. But I'm raising the argument that maybe it could. And I'm saying, maybe check this out. There's something here, right? But people just want me to say it is or it isn't more sometimes. To go back to what you were saying, Bacon, I noticed that this is something that I have to fight against actively with myself. And it's why I constantly tell people how many hours I've been playing a game and how long I've been playing these games. I talk about that because it's super relevant that these games do come easy to me. Like, that's not arrogant for me to say. Like, it isn't. I've tested, like, almost all of the major MMOs at this point. They're not that difficult for me at large. Because I've been playing them for like 20 fucking years. And I have no life. And I cover this shit for a living. So, like, it isn't difficult for me. And it's not difficult for my friends either, most of the time. But I still have to think about the other perspectives. What if I'm not a 20-year vet who used to play these games pro? What if I'm just a player who just picked this up for the first time? And that's where I think early impressions, like what Lazy Peon does, is very important, right? It's very important. I like to think he has two. I like to think he has two chats. I wish I was like, I don't know, like organized or some shit. That'd be cool. It actually is medication, Limpos, by the way, legally. Just so you know. I know you like to meme about stuff like that, but I don't take that as a joke. Just so you know. It is medication. Legally medication. Represented, no player skill required, though. You can get 2 max level in 2 days if you grind PvP easy. Oh, back on New World? Absolutely. Well, see, that's the solution card. How do you stop a game from being too fast to progress in? Just insanely make the grind not even enjoyable, and then make people pay to pass it. Oh, wait, sorry, I'm not... Don't take my ideas seriously. Just kidding, they already do this. This is like Cacao Games' like main way of functioning. It's like, make the game really hard to grind in, so you have to be incentivized to want to spend money on it. So yeah, it is a solution, but is it the best solution? Right? Probably not. At least, I think it depends. You know this MMO doesn't hold your hand is undercut by the devs gave me a max level account and left. Yeah, you missed all the context you would have gained by leveling. That's why you feel lost. Yeah, sorry, I didn't even finish fucking looking at the review. You're probably reading it through yourself right now because I blue balls to everybody. Yeah, that was flowery language, to go back to what you said, Limpos. That's a good point. Nerd is really trying hard to start this summit beef. I have smoke for any main popular streamer, YouTube personality, anybody who covers MMOs, and is as ignorant as I would be made fun of if I was that ignorant in their community. That's all I'm saying. It's like, if I went into Counter-Strike and I was like, why do I have to move? And like, smokes are too effective, and what else are like really dumb arguments I'd make that like make no sense in that context? Why is it so short to kill somebody? Why do guns have spray patterns? What are else like integral parts of the game that I don't like? Or that I could just invent that I don't like? there's no skins on the characters or some shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like those kinds of criticism, while you can say that it is your opinion and fair enough, Summit wasn't really doing that. He wasn't just saying his opinion. He was like speaking like an authority because he got shit on, which I will shit on you for doing that regardless of the context. Sorry. That's just who I am. We all lose, buddy. It's okay to lose. Like, that's what the point of the game is. You get better at it. That's why it annoys me. Because it teaches this mentality to 20, 30,000 plus people that you quit when the going gets rough, and that you judge a game without even giving it a fair shake because you don't even know what you're playing, and your ego is so sensitive that when you lose, you start crying about it. That's all I'm saying. That's why I don't like Crip either, Criparian. I don't like a lot of those guys who just flavor of the month cover MMOs. Am I supposed to just like it because they're popular? Like, that's what I noticed. Like, even like my like audience will tell me that sometimes. They're like, shouldn't you be happy they're like giving the MMO audience like shine, and like it's like they're bringing eyes to it. Like, what am I supposed to get on my fucking knees and pray to these guys? And like clean their like dust their shoes off and shit? Like scratch their backs or like what the they're like they make money off of that. What, like they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart or some shit? Like, I don't know. That's just really weird mentality that I get from people. I'm supposed to just like them because they're popular, I guess, or whatever. Or not like be critical of their opinions in any way. Like, no, that's kind of what the point of me is, right? It's kind of why I'm here. It's kind of why I have this, right? It's kind of why I can pull this bad boy out, right? We're here to do detective shit, alright? Imagine what the current highest tier of players OS are on right now, nerd. It's insane how good they are. Oh, wait. Sorry. Oh, no, I know what you're talking about. Limpos, you're really trying to defend Summit, man. You're trying, buddy. That's funny. I know there was good players around. I got shit on them too. I played with the best player in the game at the time, and trust me, he didn't have much trouble dealing with us, right? That's why he joined my team immediately after, because he was like, I'll carry you, shitter, basically, right? After me coming back to the game after like 2-3 years. So yeah, I'm well aware there's some sharks out there. I know. They were sharking me up too. I just think it's funny when somebody loses like 1 or 2 fights and then thinks they can speak as an authority to be like, oh, but this game doesn't allow you to 1v1. It's not fair. Yeah, because you lost. Yeah, but top 100 is hard in any genre of game. You'd be better off comparing how easy it is to hit top 80% of the player base. You'd be better off comparing how easy it is to hit top 80% of the player base. I think I understand what you're saying, Alondris, but I guess I'm a little bit back here and behind. Sorry, guys. But I'm trying to understand, I guess, what you specifically responding to. 'Cause before that, the conversation looks like it's about tab target, and I talked about, I think I mentioned I was sponsored at one point. I was ranked 5th in the world. In my opinion, ranked 1 at my class, but you can argue 2nd. If you're being nice, you can see that there was only one Necro that was better than me at the time. So, like, I don't say that to think everyone that plays these games should be the exact same way. In fact, I mention it to say that that's not the case. You know what I'm saying? To say that we can't design a game to where only the elite players can play. Darkfall, right? You can't do that. It's not going to work. You do need that 80% of the rest of the player base, like you're saying, and comparing the skill to them, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, I guess. If I'm understanding what you're saying, it's hard for me to compare their skill level because I'm using my own brain. You see what I'm saying? So if I could use their brain, it'd be easy to think, what is it like to think about these games with my level of skill? But you see what I'm saying? I can't just unlearn everything I've learned and like put myself in that perspective so easily. It's like, I notice that I am incredibly biased in that respect, in that I can never truly remember exactly and manifest exactly how it feels to like experience these games for the first time or as a new player. It's hard, right? but I can try to. And trying to, I think, is an important part of the process, because I don't think it's very helpful to just tell people you're not good enough to play this game. You know what I'm saying? I think it's more helpful to try and work with people and wonder, is this the right game for you? Because if it is like a game that's too mechanically difficult, maybe it isn't a game for you, right? Maybe if it's too tab target centric, maybe that's not a game for you as well. So I think it's like a combination of preference and combination of like looking at the player base as a whole. But it's just, the issue with Guild Wars 2 is that most of the people, as Limpos pointed out, that are still PvPing to this day are really good players. So like, there are very serious issues in Guild Wars. Don't think just because I'm teasing Summit that I'm not acknowledging issues. I mean, I played with Limpos and told him the issues about it. Like, with the sense of how, like, they're still stuck on the same capture point mentality map, right? That clearly doesn't really work that effectively, right? I complained about that. I also complained about how, regarding what was another thing that I would complain about a lot as well? I'm trying to think. One of them was probably how are you supposed to go from hitting max level to having a PvP fight in that game? I remember we talked about that a lot, Limpos, you and I. Like, it's a punch in the face, you know? Like, there's no way around it. So Summit got rocked. He got hit on the chin, and it rocked him. And, you know, he was fucked up, and he got emotional and reacted about it. But, you know, fuck, like, whoever the specifics are for a second. Let's just think about, like, how could Guild Wars 2 fix that problem, and is it a problem? And absolutely it's a problem. It's why the esport kind of failed. Right? I was there. I watched it. It kind of failed because of the capture point map and the fact that the game never did a good job of bringing people in from PvE into PvP. And a large part of that reason, in my opinion, surprise, is because Guild Wars 1 was not a mechanical game. That's what I truly, truly, truly believe. Why the PvP in Guild Wars 2 didn't hit as much. I mean that. I think it's because Guild Wars 1 was such a different game that when people experienced Guild Wars 2, they thought it was going to be more like that. And what they got was actually a really fucking fun action combat game that requires like good reflexes, timing, combo ability to dodge, see what's going on, recognize what's happening in a battle. Like, it's a very difficult game. It's why I love it so much, actually. Like, still to this day, guys, I have saved clips on my account of videos I recorded of me playing the game. And the reason being, not because I'm like, oh, to show all the clips of me playing the game, but it's because there's so many fun PvP engagements I had that I enjoyed. Like, I can just pull up a random one. Here's a clip, right? It's loading. Because I have a lot of them. Right? So I can pull up a clip here and I can immediately get into what's going on because I recognize what's going on. All right, I see a couple of dodges going off. I landed my my Scepter 2 on that person. I wanted to go for a corrupt boon there. As you can see, I literally pre-guessed what I was going to do before I did it. I just casted it, even though I said right before I even casted it. How did I know? Because I saw his boons, right? So that's what I'm saying. Is like that level of mind games in play. That's what players can do in this, on top of their mechanical ability. They can see shit coming like that. They already know that the guy's going to go invisible because you're going to try to corrupt boon. They already know that I'm trying to bait people into putting all of the conditions onto me, right? Why am I letting all these conditions stack onto me? So I can spread them onto you with that thing I just shot across my screen called the 4 ability, Deadly Swarm, that passes off conditions that still to this day I use to beat the best players in the game, 1v1 by the way. Like, I would beat them with that skill because they literally didn't even know that it transferred conditions. So like I'm saying, like, this is like, there's so much going on here, like tactically, mechanically, and so I love it. And I enjoyed every fucking second of it. But is it a game that was supposed to be an esport for the masses? Come on, guys. It's not even a PvP game for the masses. It's been proven at this point, right? It's not even a PvP game for the masses. So that's why I think, like, this almost is like, in some ways, talking about our previous discussion about tab target versus action combat as well, to a certain extent, right? And then, you know, like other little clips too. And I think that's like, again, it's one of my favorite things about the game is that there's so many memorable moments I can have and experience so quickly that it makes me excited to play this game, right? So here's in a scenario where I'm getting a 1 versus 1, right? Look at this. This guy opened up with literally the best opener he could possibly open up on. See? Look at my health. Summit would have already gave up, right? I mean, he literally did at like a quarter health one time, or like a half health. He gave up the fight. See? I got stomped. But I know I come back and I kill him, because otherwise I wouldn't record this video. This looks like a mid fight. Okay, well, the thief was part of the mid fight, so this was a... Wait, where'd the other guy go? Huh, I thought I saw somebody else here. This is just a 3v2 on point. Let's find a different clip. This one sucks. Actually, let me look for a 1v1 clip. Fuck, I wish I named these. Come on, there's no clip against this damn thief. Because actually, thieves are a really fun fight to watch. So I was hoping that that was a good one. Ranger fights are boring. Come on, do I not have any fights against a fucking thief, dude? Like, I know they can fucking beat me, but I definitely have some wins against them as well. Well, I'll have to look for it, guys. Some other time, maybe. Alright, but here's a really cool clip, actually, showcasing how much I like this game. This is outnumbered fights. So, when I'm not getting 1v1 by a thief off point, because apparently he landed his fucking full combo on me. That was brutal, man. He destroyed me in that fight. Here's a fight of me taking a 1v2 purposely. Okay. This is what my role was when I played Guild Wars 2 professionally. It was to basically hold people on the back point as long as I can. So I know I have the cap right now. As long as I stay on the point, I'm largely going to be able to keep that cap. So I used my my worm there, or my shroud step actually, to make myself teleport back as soon as he was about to do his shatter combo. And so I actually dodged this guy's shatter combo, but I went right into this guy's shatter combo. The dangers of 1v2s, right? So you can see, boom, stacked 11 bleeds on me, hit me for 1600, stacked confusion on me, they have torment on me. This is really bad. So I had to go into shroud, right? Look at all the bleeds stacking on me. Why did I not get rid of the bleeds? I'll show you why in a second. Because I'm spreading the bleeds off. You see what I'm saying? Like, you have to, as a look at how close I am to death. Look at that. Like, you have to juggle so close when you want to play these kinds of fights. Because how else am I going to win this fight like that? Unless I play that way. So it's like, this kind of skill required to win a 1v2 like this, you're not going to get this out of the box. And so if you went into the scenario and you just lose this 1v2, you don't get any of this experience. You just get, man, I just got outnumbered. Where the fuck is my team? Why isn't my team helping me? And then you start to think, well, let's see what my team's doing. Kind of like in a MOBA, then you're focusing on your team's not helping, or you think they suck when maybe you suck as well. And then it's just like, you can see why, like, PvP in Guild Wars 2 didn't really work out, even though I think it's really fun, you know? I actually like watching these old clips. This is funny. I have to have more of me getting like shit on as well, because those would be fun to watch.
Engineers who would have hit the ceiling.
Oh, they freaking out now. They just don't know what to do. They just trying to figure out what got what.
Me listening to Breakfast Club. Hey, there was me getting shit on literally at the start of the clip. 4v1 right there, because I was the only one backcapping the point. So like in that scenario, I could be like, "Oh my god, I'm so frustrated." Here's me. So this guy basically is saying, the guy in chat is complaining that the meta is the reason we're losing. And look at me chatting with him in chat. I'm like, I don't think that's the problem here. As I got 1v4'd. No, that's fucking funny. That's some funny shit. You literally see me get 1v1'd, and then you see my team say in chat, GG, reprop my team, bunker meta. I don't know if that was the bunker meta right there. Reprop my team, bro. Reprop my team right there. Bunker meta is why we lost that fight. Bunker meta is why I lost that fight right there. That's why we lost this game. It's all in the bunker meta. All right, here's a fight against a thief. I found one finally. I had to avenge myself after I got shit on by that guy. All right, so let's see how this guy does when he opens up. He does pretty decent, but he misses his stun. And then I ran away from him because I knew he was going to chase me down and spam his pistol whip on me. Sure enough, he does. He actually manages to get an interrupt on me there. This battle happens so fast. I can't even keep up with what's going on. Can you guys? Let me restart from the beginning and slow it down. Like, I can't even fucking follow what the fuck is going on. The funny thing about the bunker meta for me is that I told Guild Wars devs that it was a problem before the game even launched. And everyone thought I was saying that because Team PZ kept beating us in best of 5 matches. I'm not even kidding. Like, I gotta go big screen for this. The reason they didn't listen to people like me, who were like one of the most popular like voices on the game at the time, I had a big guy, you know, blah 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 blah, whatever. Was because my team got beat by Team PZ, who ended up going on to win the big tournament or whatever. PZ was like the best pro team in Guild Wars. We used to get beat by them because they abused the fuck out of the bunker meta. So what was funny is that they used to disregard our criticism because they would just say, well, you guys just can't beat us because we're better players. And we were trying to let them know, actually, nobody's going to want to watch this shit if you guys keep playing this way. Because nobody gives a fuck about the bunker meta and it's not exciting to watch. Well, they kept thinking it was just because we were sour grapes and etc. etc. So I realized at that point the community was not supporting me. And that's when I quit the game. Was because I realized then that they don't care about fixing this. They're just going to exploit it. And sure enough, Team PZ, screw you guys because y'all did go on to... Well, I mean, Zeus, you're kind of cool. Used to be on my team. But, which is funny, the player from my team went to go play on their team, replace one of their star players, even though we sucked anyway. Point being is, PZ, you're a big reason the game shook out the way it did. So congratulations, you guys dominated a completely dead and non-existent competitive scene. You want a Lego MMORPG? That would be awesome, actually. I mean, with how fun the Lego games are in general, I would like a Lego MMO. There was one, though, and it failed, I think, actually. Oof. Oh, yeah, Thule actually talks about it here. There was a Lego MMO, but they couldn't filter out all the dicks that kept building. Oh, that... the dicks that people kept building. The problem in a build game, right? Let me know if you're down for some Bannerlord. I'll need an hour to warm up, though. I mean, you or Limpulse would probably crush me right now. I feel like I'm pretty casual in terms of my skill level in that game. I do better in, like, Mordhau or Shiv, which are more of my games. But I'd be down to play for sure. In fact, as soon as they come out with the CRPG thing, we should make a server. Like, I'm down. We should make a server, and we can even, like, feature it here, where you guys can come play with us on our server. Whenever the CRPG shit comes out, it will eventually. We can make our own server. That'll be awesome. Yeah, I can't wait for that, man. That'll be kick-ass. That'll be so much fun. Sorry for coming out of the bat. Did you talk about Albion Online, or is it scheduled sometime? So, Saturday Night Live, TV, I'm at the stage right now where, to finish this year off, I had a bit of a bad year, money-wise, especially with COVID. So a big reason why the Albion stuff has taken a back step, besides just, like, my motivation for it, has actually been because Death of a Game makes far more money for me, like, largely overall. And so we've just been trying to do as many Death of a Games as possible because I'm trying to scale up the business to where I don't have to keep overdriving it, to where it's going to have more of a steady stream. That way I don't have to worry about, like, oh, I want to do this MMO review, but it's not going to make me enough money, so I can't do it right now. That's honestly the biggest problem I'm having, period. Is I just don't make enough money to just focus on reviewing games. And I wish I could. I'll get to that point, don't worry, and don't worry, this is not my way of slyly asking for money. If you have a Twitch Prime sub, throw it at me, but don't feel like you're required to or you need to, because I also value the conversation, the support, upvotes, likes, any of that kind of stuff is support to me. Especially growing up, Medicare, Medicaid, I know what it's like to not have money. I grew up on food stamps, EBT cards, you name it, Lone Star Cash here in Texas. I was the poor of the poor, had my power turned off. I know what that's like, guys. But that's why it's so important for me to make sure I get that part figured out first before I can really just focus on just what I want to do, which is just like kind of reviewing and talking more about the games themselves and playing them. I want to do more of that. It's just like that. Those kinds of videos, I'm sorry, guys, they don't do as well. They just don't. At least not yet for me. Maybe I just suck at them and I haven't gotten good enough yet. I'm working on that. I'm trying to make my reviews like the staple in the MMO industry. I'll say that now. I want them to be where everyone goes to be like, this is how MMO reviews should look. They don't have to be just my reviews you listen to, because I think it's stupid to only take one person's review serious, but that's a goal of mine. Yes, I did discuss the thing with Chris Kalecki, but I haven't watched the video, so I'm going to watch it still, actually. So if you stick by a little bit, Nix, you could check that out. I bet you $100 I will still do better with a mouse and keyboard than a controller because I hate the curse things. I don't really blame you there, Card. Honestly, like sniping and like split aiming is much faster, right? That's much faster on the mouse and keyboard. But the reason why tracking is much better on the controller is all I have to do to track is this. I'm a god. 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 That's what I feel like when I press this fucking button. It's like, yes, I have to aim a little bit with this stick, but compared to like my mouse, not even fucking close. I play Halo on my mouse. That's aiming. Halo on this. I can BXR like I have like no issues at all. I could BXR all day. I could RR. XRR, no problem. Controller mechanical has advantages in certain respects. Glitches, for one. Kung Fu Flip, BXR, weapon sliding, you name it. A lot of these bugs are better on controllers. In fact, fighting games are a good example of that. But the aiming conventions are always better on PC. It's not even close, right? The pixels, right? You're thinking about pixel, like, level of accuracy. The controller is, that's why it has the aim assist, is it needs me to lock in, lock in, lock in. So the reason why I think the controller is so powerful is because I can play lazy out of my mind, like lazy as fuck, like slouched over, just like like looking like a mess, and still gun kids with this. Meanwhile, if I play like that with my computer, I'm not the guy from that WoW episode on South Park. I can't pull that off. I can't do that. I have to actually kind of like get involved whenever I'm playing on my PC. Like, look at me, I'm moving like I'm like about to start a fight. But it's like, that's what I feel like when I'm in it and I'm getting involved. Like the controller, I feel like I'm lazy as shit. I'm just like, that. It's nice. I'm just saying, it's a different vibe, you know? I feel way more tryhard when I'm on my PC. I agree with that, Dim Dim. In fact, aiming on the controller is so hard with regards to jumping through windows. Have you tried that? Have any of y'all tried that in the new Cold War? Jumping through a window on my PC, what I can do is I can buffer the jump before I've made contact with the wall, which means I'm not doing a get up. This almost works in almost any game, by the way. I'm teaching you guys secrets on how to glitch games out, but you just have to jump far enough away from the ledge where you don't initiate the animation to cross over the ledge. If you do that, which I'm not seeing a lot of people do, maybe they're not aware of it, but it's a movement trick that basically you just got to jump a little bit before and you'll just fly through the window and you'll be way faster to come out and gun somebody. On the controller, I literally can't even do it. So no wonder why none of these pros can do it, because they're all playing controller. So it's like, yeah. I even heard Scump, one of the best players in the world, say, getting through these windows is a chore. And I agree. But on the PC, your boy's like jumping through windows like he's the Flash and shit. Or actually, no, like I'm the Kool-Aid man. No, he jumps through walls. Who the fuck jumps through windows? Anyway, I can't think of a good example. I think Halo MCC has the same issue with aim assist being attached strong. I wasn't familiar with that, Nog the Dwarf. Is there really severe aim assist on Halo MCC? Because I gun kids on my PC, so I'm gonna try that today. In fact, I have it connected, so I'm literally gonna play Halo today on my controller, see how it feels, and I'll let you guys know. Usually I can destroy kids more on the controller because I grew up playing on the controller. But I guess what I'm saying is I haven't felt like my skill really gets me in trouble on the PC, except in the very close engagements. And that's actually what happened in COD. If you guys are wondering why I made the switch, it was because I played Game Battles, which is a tournament-like platform, essentially. And I played a 2v2 match. And I did, like, not like horrible, but I did pretty decent in terms of my ability to gun people. But we lost the match. So I thought to myself, like, is my PC really helping me here? Like, is my mouse really helping me in these engagements? Well, let's see. All the engagements are this close, and aim assist guarantees you're going to be on center mass. So all the guys I was playing against were playing on PC with their controllers. So that light bulb went off in my head, and I was like, I can compete against them, but it'll be harder. And what's the point? I'm actually good at the controller already, so I'll just pick up the controller. And I picked up the controller, and I started doing well. So I think with Halo, I'm not as sure about how big of a difference it is. But I'm actually really eager to try that out because I'm like a Halo fucking stan. So I have to know, is it going to be easier for me to track target? Because if it's that much easier, then that means that's why my BXR is so much more difficult on my PC. Because my issue with my BXR on my PC is that I melee lock on my character, but it doesn't melee lock to the head. And I think that's aim assist related. So actually, maybe you're right. Shit, you're right. I don't know why I didn't even think about that. That must be aim assist related. The sticky the sticky melee is not as good on the PC because of the aim assist. I had the same problem in COD. So yeah, you just made me figure it out. Cool. Was there not a WoW dev that said that they made loot more like Diablo on purpose? Yeah, that's true, actually. You're right, Nix. I'm glad that you reminded me of that because there was a massive article. In fact, I think it was one of the founders. One of the original founders. Captain mode is the best mode so far. People actually strategize in Captain mode. That would be cool, man. I'm kind of curious to see, like, I'm kind of curious rather to see how people furious. I'm furious that people are playing Captain mode. I'm curious how people play that. The maps are just super one-sided. Of course we're smarter. We watch your stream after all. Yeah, well, I might seem smart, but I'm fucking dumb as hell at a lot of things. For example, my grammar is horrible. Like, when people see my grammar, they think I'm like a fucking, like, illiterate idiot. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, when I took the SAT, guys, I got a near perfect score on my reading. Near perfect. I think I missed one question. And then I missed, like, maybe 10 on my math, like, which is weird because I suck at math, but I did well at math. Y'all want to know what I got on my writing test? Like, especially the college kids here who have taken it. Y'all gonna laugh at me. I got lower score than all of them. My grammar score was my lowest score. I don't even like to tell people that because it's like for people who know the scores and shit, even ACT scores, I got a 32 on the ACT. Everywhere else averaged except for my grammar score, which was like a 20. So, for whatever fucking reason, you can tell when you look at my scripts and read and listen to my videos, my grammar and pronunciation isn't the best. So, yeah. We all have things that we're fucking dumb at, and that's what I'm really dumb at. It's like, I've been learning it a lot more, actually, as I learn more of other languages, which is funny, but I think part of it comes from, I was born in Texas, one of the worst states for education. I grew up in ESL household a lot of the time, where everyone was speaking Spanish, right? So I'm having to interpret 2 different languages versus just one. And on top of that, my pronunciation is being formed by Spanish speaking instead of English speaking. So in many ways, I notice my pronunciation mistakes are because I sound like an immigrant. like weirdly. Not just like a Spanish immigrant, but almost like just one who doesn't understand how grammar works properly in America. And I think it's because I wasn't taught properly, and I overdeveloped my reading comprehension to the point to where I didn't care about that. And even to this day, I largely feel like, I don't care if it's like I didn't pronounce it perfectly. I do have that opinion. So I think it's almost just become that way because I am not good at it. So I just like accepted it as a reality. I'm working on it. If I ever fuck your names up, correct me, please. Don't take that as like, all right, he's just gonna always fuck our names up. No, like, tell me to like get your names right. I won't take offense. I mean, up to and including the first Flashpoint, I got nothing but good to say about Memories of SWTOR. I'll go a step further. I'll say that Sith Warrior 1 to 50 was enjoyable, and I'll say Imperial Agent 1 to 50 was enjoyable. I'll say Smuggler was maybe like not enjoyable for a couple of levels, but largely those two playstyles or classes and stories, I enjoyed all the way to the end, basically. So as soon as I hit my max level character in Imperial Agent and my Sith Warrior, the Sith Warrior, I tried to do the Knights of whatever the fucking more recent shit and just got bored and thought it was way too easy for some reason, which is like expansion content. Why am I face rolling through this, by the way, when I'm under-leveled? Anyway. While I'm at work listening to audio, can't be that involved in chat, got you. Cut the stream, I died. Yeah, seriously, dude. Fuck, man. That doesn't count, dude. You guys have I've never lost a fight in these games, bro. I've never lost a single PvP fight, ever. Like, ever. I've never lost one. Not a single time. One of my favorite jokes to make right after you lose one, by the way. Well, I think Penzero makes a good point that people who do complain about builds typically don't have the skill to deal with them in the first place. But I also do agree with Limpos in the fact that it is mathematically proven that it's way easier to just not die than it is to kill somebody. And that's why they've tried to keep balancing it the other way as much as possible, but then it always ends up creating these FOTM builds that just dominate. Still almost always top 3. I think I remember playing with you, Limpos, and you were pretty good at Mordhau. I forgot. Yeah, I forgot you were pretty good. All right, you'll probably beat me in Mordhau, but you won't touch me in Chivalry. How about that? and maybe Mountain Blade will be more even. Actually, right now, I think you and Hugh will probably beat me. I don't think I'm that good right now. Mainly because I've just been doing mounted combat. I've been doing a lot of couching of lances and some mounted archery and javelins and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I would say maybe I'll get more kills on a battlefield than you. But I don't think I'd win in a fight 1v1. I just say that because I used to play Darkfall with probably one of the best Mountain Blade players ever, Raid. And you can look him up if you're not familiar with him already. You probably don't follow the competitive scene, basically, which nobody really does, but he had like 6,000 hours in the game before. And he was one of the best players in the game. And a so-so player in Darkfall. So that tells me that eventually I could get to that level, but clearly he worked a lot to get to that point, and I'm not there yet. I never animation canceled. Those devs worked hard on those animations. That was a funny one. Where I came from another country and was also in ESL classes, I hear you. Yeah, how it worked for me, Isomore, was so from elementary all the way to middle school, I went to what I would call a ESL dominated school, which is just like the vast majority of people at my school were also Hispanic. So pretty like from 3rd grade on, when Bush got rid of the whole, or when he implemented the whole no child gets left behind utter bullshit, that was like an utter failure, by the way, a massive failure. My sister was a part of that failure. I was a part of that failure. They had this whole mentality of like, all right, let's simplify the education system. Let's just teach all of these kids English real quick, and then we'll just like integrate them. Well, surprise. Next thing you know, when they got rid of the ESL classes, nobody could really speak English properly. So that's what I went to school with for 6-7 years of my young childhood. You see what I'm saying? So I was constantly surrounded by people who could barely speak English, and when they did, they spoke it like I speak. And my parents speak, which is kind of more like, what would be the word? Spanglish. Very, like, improper Spanish. I finally caught up. You saying that Bush implemented poor policies? Yeah, we're not going to talk about politics today, but yes, education in Texas has been literally laughable if it wasn't people like myself who are so negatively affected by it, right? It'd be pretty fucking funny to make fun of how illiterate and stupid Texas people are in general. As a Texan, I'm allowed to say that. It would be funny if it wasn't also sad and those are humans and people that are getting worse lots in life because they have poor education, basically. So, yeah. You thought Texas was super high on education. All the Americans right now are laughing out loud at you. All the Americans are laughing at you right now, Limpos. I love you, buddy. That's funny, man. No, dude. No. No. Not just our education system, Penzier. I'm talking about Texas, bro. I'm talking about Texas. I went to the #1 public school. I can't tell y'all what the fuck I learned in high school. Because all they were focused on was getting me to do well on scores. And they did a good job of that. I scored well. That doesn't really help me in my life, though. Who the fuck cares if I scored high? I told you guys my scores earlier. Who cares? I don't even care about my scores. Because they don't put food on my table in the same way that my actual skill does, or my position, like, working somewhere does, you know? Like, I lucked out. I was part of an ESL program where that was still good. I went from 0 English to being placed in advanced English classes for 4 years. Do y'all even have standardized testing, Limpos? Well, yeah, what test are you even talking about? That's pretty impressive, though, Isomore. Yeah, sorry. Your Finnish brethren are the ones that are ahead of the charge, then. Wait until the next generation comes... Oh, at 9th grade. That makes actually sense to me. To wait until you're, like, kind of at, like, the formative years of, like, your teenage life. Makes sense to me. Wait until the next generation comes, though. Oh, no. No. Again, I laugh, but I laugh almost like I'm, like, scared. You know, I laugh like I'm like, this is funny, right, guys? Yeah. We're in trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. Especially as a nation, education-wise. I think America has an education crisis, personally. But it gets ignored because if you have enough money in this country, it doesn't really affect you in the same way. So, because I went to the most wealthy and popular, successful, whatever you want to call it, public school, I was used to people around me having insane amount of privilege. Now, what I found interesting is that I always ask myself, why did these kids choose to come to this public school when they could have chose to just go to a private school? Large reason why is because of the sports and because of the they wanted to be with their friends in the public schools. But tons of kids in my neighborhoods, well, I say my neighborhood like I was in a rich neighborhood. I was in an apartment, a shack in a nice neighborhood. But like the other private schools were so far ahead of us in education. It always made me wonder, why do the wealthy people send their kids to my school? And part of it is I just think they don't even understand how bad the education is. Which goes to show you, even the people who have a lot of privilege and money don't understand how poor those educations are. Because I ran circles around those kids. Like, sorry, just true. And they had way more privilege than I did. And more money. And tutors and shit. And so, like, but then I would look at the private school kids and they were way ahead of me. And so I was like, this is so weird. Like, we're all in, like, the same neighborhood and yet we go to, like, 5 different schools. Some not even close, either. Because you don't even want to go to the normal school because it's so shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about that. Like, you live right next to the school, but you won't let your kids go there. You'd rather send them to private school. Does that not tell you about the stage of education in Texas, at least? I mean, you have to be zoned for a school. So how does a poor kid like me end up going to a rich school? We moved into an apartment that was barely zoned, right? So, like, my dad had to make that sacrifice to take us to a better school. The problem was it wasn't that much better. It wasn't. Yes, we score high. Yes, we have some of the highest scores. Yes, we're a top-ranked school. But I went there, and I actually was like a student there. And I can't tell you a whole lot that we learned that was useful. It's a bunch of shit getting you prepped for college, which is not how you prepare people for life. Oh, you got to go to both. Yeah, my dad went to a Catholic school, which is a private school. It was a nightmare. So he never got to tell me about the better education parts because it was always stories he told me with nuns hitting him with rulers and shit. Because Catholics are crazy, especially Mexican Catholics. But it's culturally cool to be some gangster who cannot read or write in the USA. Most other cultures value education more. That's so true, Daedalus. And the weirdest thing about that is I got shamed for it all the time, actually. And in fact, I remember, I was so, like, to tell you guys, when I went to my high school, bunch of rich white kids, I was so, like, embarrassed to read Star Wars books because nobody there read. Like, in fact, the people there found it a proud and prideful thing to not read. I had a conversation with my 10th grade teacher, and here's what she told me. So she's like, so, I was thinking of having us read Tom Sawyer. And I said, it was just her and I in the class because I was staying after for some reason, I don't remember. And so she tells me, I'm like, that's awesome, I love Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn. I read them in 2nd grade. She was like, you read them in 2nd grade? 2nd or 3rd, I can't remember, one of those. Our 10th graders can't even read this. Needless to say, that made me really sad that day because I realized it for the first time. These kids can't even read fucking Tom Sawyer, bro. And these are the kids who went to Harvard and Yale and UT and Southern Methodist University and every major college you can think of. We had 23 valedictorians. 23, that's unheard of. We had like 10 salutatorians. Like, we were the anomaly public school that everybody talks about, that you think is going to be the one that's going to prove the argument the other direction. And yet, my teacher told me that Tom Sawyer was too challenging for 10th graders to read. Okay. Yeah. That's so cringy to think about. And so, trying to score her. If you knew how she looked, you'd think that was funny. Not because she's ugly, but because she has a certain kind of look where she's like not the least bit interested in that kind of stuff. Like, she's not. Or wasn't. Now, my 12th grade English teacher, she was well aware that she was hot. She knew it. Yeah, anyway, I like to tell you guys my stories because I feel like a lot of the time we talk about things like education, you hear like political discussions and stuff, and it's like, you don't hear people talking about it. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, 12th grade is like the final year before you graduate. But yeah, you don't hear people talk about this from personal perspectives, and I think it's because all of the people who benefit from the system aren't going to complain about the system, really, right? Why the fuck would they? If you went to a public school or a private school and you had everything like situated for you properly, why would you complain about schooling? Well, no wonder the elite in America don't complain about schooling. But I'm arguing they should still complain about it because there's metrics that we're losing to other nations. Like verifiable metrics that we're losing in education in many respects to other nations that are like, you know how Americans make the argument that, well, the Scandinavian countries have socialist policies in certain respects, but they can only do that because they're small countries. Okay, so what's the argument for them having better education then? That they're small? That they're too small? That's why basically it works. That's why they figured out a better system. It's just because they have less people, right? That's how averages work. That's how scores work. No? The fuck? I agree it was a night and day difference when I went from private schools overseas to American public schools. Ah, Hilo, that's a really good example. Diplomat kids, well, you're not a diplomat kid, but you know diplomat kids, have that exact lifestyle. My girlfriend's mother was a diplomat kid. So, like, well, lived the life of a diplomat kid, sorry. Not a diplomat kid, but lived the life sort of as a diplomat kid. And so I also have a friend who, I've mentioned this before, who works for the UN. And she has a couple of friends like that who were diplomat kids. Well, one of them, she used to date the guy and then realized he was insufferable because he was so fucking privileged of living this life of like traveling wherever he wanted, having everything he wanted at his fingertips. That's what diplomat kids are like. Honestly, one of the most spoiled kids, period. Ah, my father had diplomat plates but worked for a private company. I don't know anything about that, if I'm being honest. Nordic person here, Finland represent. Hey, Yondalar, welcome. We actually have another Finn now. That is cool. One of our moderators. One of our original moderators, I should specify. Pretty much all of our moderating force is Scandinavian, with the exception of one Dutch boy. I wish I never attended school. I wish I could have gotten a degree at uni at 10 through 12. That's an interesting perspective. I wish I could have skipped high school as well, actually, and middle school. I wish that instead of middle school and high school, they would have just put me in an academy and just focused on my strengths and trying to make me the best me I could be. I think all the other general schooling didn't work for someone like me. Not really. I mean, general schooling can work. I'm not trying to say it doesn't work. But that's why I'm telling you guys my story, because I am a story of poor kid from Hispanic household who was very intelligent, who is telling you from my perspective going to a top public school in America and in Texas that it sucks there too. Limp Boss, I could still ban you on Discord. How's it going? Hola. ¿Qué tal? Darn, I wish I could go to school more. I wish that way now, but like for college, like specifically. So I know I just talked about like shitting on education. Now I talk about college in a positive light. People are like, what the fuck? Like, well, yes, there's tons of problems with college. First off, the fact that it's for profit and then some. But my issue with college largely is actually before college even starts. So before college even starts, that's my problem with college. Is we don't prep people to know what the fuck they want to do by that point, and then expect to just drop them off in the middle of nowhere with no responsibilities, and then, hey, now figure it out. Yeah, most people aren't self-starters like that. They're not going to know what they want to do. They're going to read, they're going to see the society, propagate all these, like, be this person, the Instagram star, this, and that's what they're going to be thinking about. I want to be that, I want to be that, I want to be that, because they're not seeing the path to be, like, the star photographer or whatever the fuck, right? I've actually considered after I finish my bachelor's degree to get a master's degree as well. Actually, Limpos, I've thought about that. I put my bachelor's on hold for such a long time that I just finally decided the next 2 years I was going to finish it. Since I'm so close at this point. So but I've talked to you guys about how I'm going to be moving to Spain in 2 years, and Madrid has one of the best international business schools in the world, probably the best. So I've been considering, especially if I enjoy my bachelor degree, getting a master's in international business, because that'll be very good for me as a American to get a foreign international degree like that in international business, because it doesn't really matter as much in America. In fact, that degree is like kind of useless unless you're going to go abroad, basically, which was what I was going to do. But then I decided to change my mind now. I'm changing university from University of Texas to a private university. And the reason being because I like a program that they have there. The program that they have there is called Digital Media Management, and it's a business degree. And basically what it is, it's like a standard business degree, but then they also add building your own IP, building your own company, working on how to like build shops and all of the mechanics that go with it, and then also looking at like trends, economics, all that stuff. So it's very related to my field and my career. So that's why I want to get a degree in it. And also because A degree means a lot to my family. Again, being a poor Hispanic kid, yeah, having a degree means a lot. How much debt or head damage you have now? Well, I have a lot of brain damage, but I don't think that's related to my school. That's probably from getting punched in the head and having PTSD. But if you mean in terms of like, you know, money I'm in the hole for right now, let's say maybe just 1 or 2 G's, nothing too bad. Like, honestly, I'm pretty privileged in that respect. And when I mean privileged, I paid for it all out of my own pocket. So, meaning privileged in the sense that I'm very lucky that I didn't have to rely too much on loans. Not that they would have given them to me anyway, by the way. They literally weren't going to give me loans because for the longest time in America, up until you're like 24, 25, you can't even claim yourself as a sole dependent. So what I had to do is keep claiming myself as me and my dad. And at the time I was working in corporate. So my dad and I combined made a decent amount of money, over 6 figures combined, which is not that much money in the big scheme of things, but for them to look at it in that way. Now the fucking comical thing is that they come up with what their supposed contribution will be from that. So that's what they do. They determine, should you get aid? If you're a dependent, they look at how much money your parents makes. When they look at how much money your parents make, they then decide, okay, well then your parents make X amount of money, so like you should be able to pay this amount of your schooling. So then imagine me being a poor kid, now having some level of money that I just got into. It's not like I just had it for a long time. I barely started working in that kind of job. And my dad doesn't make like an insane amount of money either. Being told by the government and schools that I'm going to put up like 20 or 30 grand of this 100,000, which is literally like, we wouldn't even be able to live if I paid that much. Like we would die. We wouldn't have a place to stay. You know what I'm saying? Like we wouldn't be able to eat. So that's why I put a pause on my schooling. Well, and starting my YouTube career, to be honest. But that was a large part of it, was just simply the money. I couldn't build my YouTube channel, take less money while I'm doing it, and live a simpler life while also doing that for school. You know, it's just like, I was going to spread myself so thin, I wasn't going to do it. So you might be asking, how am I going to do it now? Well, luckily, I'm finally fucking over 25, so I'm 27 now, so I'm old enough to be able to say, all right, well, I don't make very much money, so can you guys help me out? So maybe the government will finally help me out. Yay! If you start talking Spanish with a Spanish accent, I'm going to make fun of you. Well, I'm not going to lie. I've kind of been trying to learn a little bit of the idiosyncrasies of Spanish-speaking Spanish speakers. So, while I don't always do it, I do like to do it almost just for fun, because it's so different than how I would pronounce something. So, like, for example, is there's a lyric that I like in the song. It says "Que fatalidad." Now that's probably how I would say it normally. But when I say it more like a Spaniard, I say "Que fatalidad." Que fatalidad. Even though it's a D, they still pronounce D's like dad, 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 and then like a Valencia, Barcelona. You can even hear it in Madrid, you know? So I've been trying to adopt those little parts, but largely I still roll my R's way too much, which is a Mexican thing. And I'm way too guttural with my Spanish, which is also a Mexican thing, I think. Real talk, sorry. A large reason why our schooling is so expensive is because of the businesses kind of profited off of college. Like, books are probably a huge one. We pay a certain amount of books where we realistically can get for a fraction of the cost from third-party sources. How about go one step further? How about at major universities, you get sold a required book for reading by the teacher themselves? That happened to me at UT, which is corporate as you can get for like a big school. Like, non-ironically, I'm sitting in my geography fucking class, and the guy looks over to me and he's like, "Hey, do you have your book?" And I was like, "Yeah, I have the book right here." no, that's not the new one. You need the new one so it has the code so you can set it for the class. And I'm like, oh fuck, I gotta go get the new one now. I look at the title, and I'm like, wait a minute. Isn't this my fucking teacher? So no wonder why you want me to buy the fucking book. So you can make money off of it. That's crazy, dude. That's nuts, man. Whew. That's crazy. Yeah, Pearson. Oh, man. Don't get me started on them. They're horrible. Hi, I'm new here. What's up, Gotaplot? Just read your about here and noticed that you're one of the YouTube content creators. Like, so YouTube is your main gag now? Yeah, YouTube, I've been doing it professionally now for... shit, like 2 years? Almost 2 years? College textbooks, now that's a solid racket. Totally agree, baby. Buy a brand new book for $100 something, $200, $300. Get rid of it the next year for like a quarter of the price. Sounds like a great idea for a business strat for me. Ah, so you can access them through different ways? Like you don't need a code or some shit? Because I think that would solve a lot of these problems if we could just resell to ourselves, right? Ah, being the recent edition. Yeah, that's what I'm saying about the code. Is it's basically checking if it's the recent edition or not. Alright, you guys have any questions I would like to get to before we head out? I might watch this video before we leave about why this guy left Blizzard. We'll have to put it on fast though, because it's like 14 minutes.
Going to do a quick personal update on me, and that personal update is that after 13 years working at Blizzard on World of Warcraft, I've decided to leave. And the reason why I'm making this video, I guess, is just because it's been 4 weeks or so since I've left. And I think anybody who's ever worked at a company and left like I have knows this experience of your friends and your coworkers and people that care about you reaching out and wondering, why did you leave and what's the story and what are you up to next? But I thought about making a tweet or a post or something like that. But I thought ultimately maybe making a video might be the way to go. And so that's really what this is. Before I say anything, I do want to stress that, I really did enjoy my time working at Blizzard. I wouldn't have stayed as long as I did if I didn't write. What's really great about the company and about the studio is the incredible talent that works there. Many people at Blizzard and on the WoW team are friends of mine and like family to me. And so, this video isn't really to elicit any ill will towards them or to the studio or any of that. It's really just kind of tell my own story. And likewise, for anyone who's left or thinking about leaving or staying, everybody has their own sort of career goals, their own sort of path that they're on. And so
I sped it up, Flytermo. He talks really slow and sorry. That's one of my biggest pet peeves. I literally I cannot take people who talk slow. Like it literally like you'll see me like in live go like and melt. Like I can't take people who talk too slow. It drives me crazy.
Many of you, I played a lot of Warcraft 3. I played a lot of StarCraft, and I played World of Warcraft since it was in early beta. And in WoW,
also, when you watch as many videos as I do, you have to speed them up.
Guild at the time on Tychondrius, and some of the things that I really loved to do in WoW, outside of play it, was really kind of the theory craft about the game. Think about what they should change, what they should remove, what spells they should add, things like that. I'd really like bug my guild about bouncing ideas off them. I would do these fake patch notes that would go viral, where I'd list out things that I felt like they should change in the game, and things that I predicted they would change. And I think they went viral right because people really did think a lot of those changes should be added. And in fact,
that seems to follow up what somebody said earlier, which is like maybe people just weren't listening to this guy at the top level, and that's very likely because it sounds like right here he was saying he was trying to say like some of these things, and even he got some level of support, maybe just from fans, but
add them later on. And one thing led to another, and I kind of met someone who worked at Blizzard through my server, and I sent him a lot of my ideas and things that they should change, and they started to add a lot of those ideas.
Is his name Destiny Pinzero? Because
yeah, led to another, and
yeah, or Ben Shapiro.
Maybe I applied.
Those are two fast speakers I can think of off the top of my head.
The interview went well, and kind of the rest is history.
Don't forget the Astra stream is in 30 minutes. What are they showing off today, Quintessence?
Started work at Blizzard was really not just class design, but also PvP.
Time is money, friend.
Here as well, and but the thing is, the team was a lot smaller.
Time is money, friend.
I think as a player, I thought, well, they probably have a warrior designer and a priest designer and a hunter designer, and they all hang out and go to Starbucks. But the reality was that the team was a lot smaller than that, and it was really kind of me at the time for a while, just me and another class designer, this guy Kevin Jordan, who really designed out a lot of the early classes. And so this was like around production time of Wrath of the Lich King, and there was a lot of class design that happened in that expansion. I remember one of the first things I worked on was
No offense, you guys
one
were
of the
totally
changes that I
understaffed.
basically
It's not your
placed
fault, but
peace
holy
versus
fuck, no wonder
because
why you guys are
at the
so
time it
stuck in
only
the
worked on the
weeds with
priest, but I
your
wanted
class
it to work
systems.
on allies and on allies as well. And so that really kind of transformed the spec from just being for you know to be more viable in PvP and also
Especially card
raids.
if your brain
And
works
that
like
was kind of
mine,
really one
which
of
is
my
I'm
main
not.
focuses as well. Is just
My
that
brain's not
the team at the time
listening
was very
to
kind of on the
what he's
fence with whether they
saying
wanted
and
certain specs in the
remembering
PvP
it.
spec.
Not in the same way that most people's does, right? Because of my condition, basically. When I listen to a video, it processes through my brain. So meaning like I won't even be able to tell you after this what the fuck he even said. Like half the time I forget what somebody even told me like 5 minutes ago. But I will still take what he said to heart. You see what I'm saying? So I'll still listen to what he said. I'll still take it and then it'll start to inform myself. So part of that problem I realize comes into this like weird like where I see that somebody's making like put it this way. Like I see that what did you say feels better? Because people can actually sorry, it keeps scrolling up for some reason. Recently I've been doing it and it does work. In fact, I feel some stuff sticks better. Okay. I don't know about sticks better, but to make my point, I'll then think after watching this video at some other time, well, guys, 2 class designers wasn't enough. But I won't remember that this guy Chris told me that. You see what I'm saying? Like that's kind of how my brain works. So that's why largely I watch things pretty fast because I know I'm not going to remember it. But I'm going to remember what I need to remember, which is more what I'm focused on.
For me, I felt it was sort of a duty to the player to really make all these specs and classes viable in as many aspects of the game as possible. And so really that was one of my main early focuses. Some of the things I worked on, I set up a website with some list of things I worked on, but I'll put it in the description below. But some of the things I worked on was
that's
the monk
good.
class.
Yeah, you need to get hired again, buddy.
Main designer for the monk class. I the Mistweaver really was the spec that I designed for myself. Just kind of the way that I like to heal. I designed a lot of the PvP talents, PvP talent system, war mode. In Shadowlands,
all right, I'm gonna have to full stop there. You had a very, very, very idealistic view of what war mode was going to be. And I'm going to afford you the benefit of the doubt to say that you were working with what you had, and not that you literally thought it was going to work.
The things I worked on was Monk Legendaries, the Shadow Priest revamp I did, and there's some other war mode content in there as well that I hope turns out well. And so, why did
he said that? Listen to how he says that. He literally doesn't even sound confident about it.
Was Monk Legendaries, the Shadow Priest revamp I did, and there's some other war mode content in there as well that I hope turns out well. And so, why did I leave? I think it's complicated, right? I think there's a lot of different reasons, but I think the main
I hate war
mode.
Mode.
For a while, probably too long, I've just been kind of unhappy with the state of the game, right? And it wasn't until when Classic came out that I really kind of knew I was able to figure out why. And I think the reason why is that
you were ignoring everything. Sorry, I'll just have to say it. Like, this guy seems like a nice guy, and he means well, but like, if Classic WoW was the only thing that made you realize that WoW had these serious issues that you were yourself documenting, isn't it more that you were just keeping that as, like, to yourself or like repressing that part? But you yourself admitted it had a lot of mistakes early on, including not having enough people working on the team in certain respects. I just think it's really strange when it takes like literally everybody in unison crying out in agreement for somebody to come out of the woodwork and finally agree. That's all I'm saying. Is like, why does it have to be after that momentous event that now everybody feels the same way as you, by the way? Why did it take that event? I would like to actually talk to him personally about that. I'm curious, like, why did it take you, a developer who worked on the game and even admitted it had many issues, so long to realize it had such deep intrinsic issues when Rob Pardo, one of the original founders and creators of the game, himself said that years before that? So, yeah, I guess that's just kind of the problems I'm having here, is that Metzen, many of these other well-known developers who have been involved with WoW, have all talked about these issues before. So, I guess, why did it take Classic WoW for people to realize all of this? Largely, I understand, like, because it was popular, it was, all over the place, the player base saw it in that sense. Fair enough. But I guess I just don't necessarily understand why it takes everybody coming out and saying, it's safe now to talk about WoW's design is not the same. I don't know. That just strikes me as, like, very safe is all I'm saying. I would just like to understand why. Like, why couldn't he see it before then, out of curiosity? I did, and I didn't even work on the game. I'm pretty sure he knows a lot more about the game than I do, so...
Classic, the vision of the game is very clear, right? It's big concepts like the world is the main character, the player is the story, the community is the content. And I think in the modern game, these pillars still exist, but I think to a lesser degree. And I think the vision in the modern game is a little muddled in that way. And so, what are some examples? Right?
It's been muddled since
exactly.
like
One
5
example,
expansions
I think,
ago, by the way.
is the concept of the guild. I think in Classic, the guild's a big deal, right? In order to do really anything at endgame, you really need to be in a guild.
Guilds haven't been a serious thing for a long time, by the way.
And so,
Which is why I'm saying, why does it take Classic WoW to realize that? I'm not even a big WoW player, and I recognized that before Classic WoW. I don't know. I'm so confused about this, I'll be honest. This is confusing me even more.
What this does is it kind of creates interdependence among players where they kind of really need each other in order to be successful. And I think this can feel really restrictive at times, but ultimately what it really does is it creates cohesion, it creates community. And I think over time players kind of fought against this just because, they wanted to play the game solo where they didn't really have to worry about...
Players did not fight against that. That's disingenuous, and you know it, buddy. Some players fought against it. The blockbuster players that you guys attracted that weren't even interested in the genre in the first place. Come on. You're smart enough to know that, buddy. I know you know that.
Other players, or have to worry about like some guild leader...
Don't just say players like everybody fucking agreed, because that's pretty arrogant.
Barking orders at them. And, I think that's fair, and I think that makes a lot of sense, but I think ultimately it's them where they didn't really have to worry about other players or have to worry about like some guild leader barking orders at them.
So, what is really the point that he's trying to make here? Not getting ordered around by a guild leader was why people wouldn't want to have a guild leader? Or like getting ordered around by one would make you not want to have one necessarily? Isn't that also why you want a guild leader, so they can lead you? Because like that's in the name, guild leader. They're the leader. They lead you. I don't know, man.
And
I'm so confused.
Fair, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think ultimately, it's big changes like that have really changed the game. Another example I think is a story. I think, Warcraft and WoW has always had a story, but I think lately in the modern game, I feel like the story is such a bigger part of it. I think the characters and all their own
multiplayer online RPG, their metamorphosis is complete, bud.
I think in a virtual world and an MMO, really the players are the story. On Classic, what's funny is
yeah, I understand that, Narashu. I'm just trying to also take him seriously because, like, I read the article and then somebody told me there was a video. So I'm like, I don't want to just, like, read the article, which is, like, bits of his argument, and then, like, misrepresent him or something. Like, I give developers a lot of leeway because I understand, A, how difficult it is to make these games, B, how many people are pulling them in different directions, and C, that they have different focuses that we don't know about, basically. Like Limpos even stated, in some cases, it's just money. So, like, that's why I give them a lot of leeway in that sense. But where I don't give them a lot of leeway is when they come out with opinions that are seemingly behind everybody else's for the past 10 years. Like, I don't understand how developers can be behind the player base, is what I'm trying to say. The developers originally started the fucking industry. They're the ones that started the whole idea of a virtual world, of going to all these fucking states. And now it's on the players to do all of that? Like, that seems totally backwards.
Our guild gets a lot of drama, a lot of heat, because a lot of the players in the guild like to prevent others from resetting the Inixia buff with the head. This really pisses off a lot of players, and we get a lot of grief, and people ban us from groups and things like that. And it's funny, but it creates a player story, and I think it creates drama in the game. And I think that's really what
I agree with you there.
Is some, this human.
We griefed people all the time in the game too over objects like that.
Really love the story of WoW
because it's part of the game.
I love a lot of the characters and the cinematics and things like that.
Sorry,
again, I feel like
griefed.
This shift really does.
Or like ganked.
Change the game and has a real effect. There's a lot of other minor things. I feel like we focus a lot too much on the extrinsic rather than the intrinsic gameplay. I feel there's too much focus on these progression systems and on engagement, and instead I think we should really focus on the core features of the game. Like systems like the guild system. I feel like we should be focusing on features that really an MMO can only do, right? And of course, there's millions of players who really love WoW how it is currently and love the modern game. And I think that's really just the point of it all, is just that really it's not so much a problem with the game as it is really just kind of a disconnect between what the modern game is and what the game used to be for me. I would say though that
okay, yeah, fair enough.
You could say the vision of the modern game has maybe changed, but I think
it has changed. You don't have to keep saying maybe. That's what I'm saying is, like, I feel like he doesn't want to commit to things because he doesn't want to get backlash, but you've already came out. You already left the company. What do you mean maybe? Like, I don't understand. How is it maybe?
But I think even if that's true, I feel like that vision isn't so clear. And I think I hear this a lot with players who they feel like, what is WoW really about anymore, whatever it is. And I think that's a problem. But I think the bigger problem actually is what I would hear from, developers on the team, that they are also confused about what the vision of the game is, right?
That kind of proves
Some
my
of them
point that
think
I just
the
said
vision has
earlier,
never
that
changed, and some
he
feel
himself admitted that he was also confused about the game. So I think it's kind of ironic that, in a way, he just talked about developers and how they didn't have an understanding of how the game works after he explained how he knows how the game works. But before that, he mentioned he didn't know how the game worked up until Classic WoW. So, like, in a sense, he's even like incriminating himself as being like, I was one of the people who didn't know. At least that's how I take that logically.
like it's this new modern take, and I think that is going to be the biggest challenge for the team going forward. I really love this quote that's something like, if you want to build a ship, you don't drum up the people and tell them what to do, and tell this guy to gather wood and this guy to build a sail or whatever it is. Instead, you teach them to yearn for the vast and endless sea. And in doing that, you don't need to tell people what to do, because they just know where they're going, and what the goal is.
I'll disagree. I think that's a very idealistic view of how sandbox games work, and I'll tell you why. That is exactly what sandbox games used to be, which was basically, we're going to plop you off in the middle of nowhere and tell you that you can play everything and do everything. Wow. Wow. We also have to be critical of sandbox games, and I think that's where I'm critical of them, is they're a little bit too much like that, where it's like they give you zero direction, including even like a point of like what you're supposed to even do. So will people come away saying you can do everything in the game? People come away thinking like, okay, so what is everything? Nothing, basically?
And so yeah, I really feel like if there's a big challenge for the WoW team, it's really to figure out what that vision is and what the modern game is and how it differentiates from classic.
But they already did that with Shadowlands. It's like, I guess that's what I'm confused about. Maybe this is like, he's saying like they haven't proven it yet with Shadowlands, so that's what he means. But I'm like, but literally the expansion is top down. That's what it's designed to do. Like,
as for the company,
very clearly,
it's a very different company than it was 13 years ago. I think
definitely true. The vast majority of the original founders left, including the founders who worked on WoW.
It used to be. I remember there was like one building, and now there's like 16, or I don't know how many they are now. And so, not that that's a bad thing. I think that's a great thing, because it really tells you that Blizzard is successful and that people want more of its ideas, of its creations. And that's great. But I think, if there's any challenge,
that's not really true, bro. Plenty of things have become super popular for not being good quality.
With the studio now or going forward, it's really just a challenge of scale, and I think that's a challenge that any company goes through once they grow.
I will agree with his main point there, that currently right now their main problem is the problem of scale, and it's what I've actually started off talking about on the podcast.
And so, but I think ultimately, I think WoW and Blizzard will persevere. I think they have incredibly talented people that work there, and I think the IPs are so strong and great. And so I think really ultimately long term, WoW and Blizzard will be totally fine.
How can you say that though, when WoW's already reached a point where people are wondering what's next? In fact, people wondered that like 6 years ago. I don't know. It just seems like maybe something you say to like kind of have like an amicable like ending to your video and your relationship with Blizzard. And while it's not bad to assume that maybe they could do well, do you really think that WoW as an IP, as you stated, is like it's being handled well? I'm just curious, because maybe we just have a very different opinion of what's considered handled well, and we'll just never agree on that. And that's fair.
But I think this brings it back to me now, which I think, all these things have sort of forced me to reflect on what I want to do, and, where I want to be. And it's sort of, this has really reminded me of, why I wanted to work on WoW in the first place. And I think that really is because I wanted to work on a virtual world. And I think ultimately, despite its flaws, WoW really is still the king of virtual worlds. And I think
it is not. It is not a virtual world. That's literally incorrect statement.
But I used to think Blizzard maybe, would hold that crown forever, or be the one who would,
That's so cringy that he said that, bro.
These days, I just don't know if that's
nobody calls WoW a virtual world. Not even the people who invented the word.
Virtual world.
Not even people who helped coin the term ever call it that.
Games now are more about like battle royales.
That's really weird, dude.
Projects or wherever that is.
Sorry, that's total nonsense. WoW is not a virtual world. like if you want to say literally by the textbook definition, maybe you can make that argument. But virtual world meant something very specific when we used it as terminology in the early, 2000s, late 90s. Virtual world was talking about plugging into the fucking Matrix. Do you get what I'm saying, guys? Virtual world was like, you are a different person, an avatar. You have a different job and task. Not you're on a track to level all the way to 60 and then get spoon-fed content as it comes into you. How is that a virtual world? You're literally on a track, and you have to do what it tells you to do, which is play through the game. Yes, there's more options in Classic WoW compared to normal WoW with regards to like what you're focused on, right? It's not all like just like progression and those kinds of things that he was just talking about earlier in achievements. But yeah, I don't know. That's calling WoW a virtual world leaves a really weird taste in my mouth because it gives me this feeling that you just have a gross misunderstanding of what the terminology was supposed to mean. And while I don't claim or know exactly what every word in these cases means, that's why I always go back to their original meanings, because I try to see what did people mean when they talk about virtual world. Well, I can tell you, they did not mean WoW. Like, that was not what they had in mind. Like, it's very clearly an easier version of EverQuest, which was trying to be a virtual world. How do you make a much easier version, way more directed of a version of a virtual world without it losing some of its virtual world aspects? That's what I'm trying to say, guys. Is like, how can we look at WoW and EQ and even say that they're comparable besides just having like raids and classes and you level in it? Like, I've played Project 1999, the original EverQuest. It's not like WoW, guys. It's not. Like, if you think EverQuest is like WoW, you've been lied to. They're lying to you guys to push some weird kind of narrative or whatever. WoW is not like EQ. It has such fundamental differences. That's why it worked better. Because EQ was that way, which made it unique. WoW took away certain unique aspects and just added a little bit more polish. Well, a lot more polish. And a little bit more like, let's take some of these cool ideas and do it this way. Better implementation, essentially, is what WoW did. But how, by design, doing that, could you create a virtual world necessarily? I guess I'm just not really buying that argument. Sorry. I don't really think WoW is a virtual world, and I think to call it that is a gross misunderstanding of what a virtual world is trying to be, right? A virtual world doesn't just let you become a warrior. Let's go big screen for this so I can really make you guys understand this.
I think that's totally...
A virtual world would make no fucking sense if the only thing you could do was fight people. How does that make sense? I'm a martial artist, but does everybody here in chat fight or spar? Should all of you? Well, in my virtual world, all of you should fight and spar. Like, is that really a virtual world or is that just a game? Why do I have to fight? Why are there only 2 factions to join? These aren't virtual world aspects, guys. I beat my wife, does that count? For the sake of the argument, I'm just kidding. I'm waiting for the day that Blizzard adds the queue for dungeons and BG menus on the character sorry, you spelled. I see what you're saying though. The character select screen. That's fucking hilarious, dude. I can see that. We must fight now, Nerd Slayer. There can only be one. What are we fighting over? Food? Because I'm hungry, man. I'll fight over food, but it's hard to get me to want to fight about anything else, honestly. Physically, I should specify. I'll argue to the end of time. That's what we're doing here for 3 hours. I'm arguing at myself while you guys just laugh at me. No, I'm just kidding. WoW is a virtual carousel. That's a great way to put it. Exactly. I guess it is a virtual theme park, if that's what he means. But is a theme park a world? Like, let's just think about it. I know all of you are going to say, Astro World, Six Flags World. You're going to like start naming these parks that have world in the name. But I'm saying, like, for a second, you walk inside of Astro World, or like, it's dead. You walk inside of Six Flags. You walk inside of Disney World. Disney World. Disney World. Oh, that's a world, dude. Look at how much they put into it. That's probably the best theme park, right? That's probably the best argument, actually. Thank you for mentioning that one. Apparently, I'm so brain dead I don't even remember the biggest one, but clearly I've never been. Disneyland versus Disney World. Are those equivalent? For people who've been to the real Disney and the other Disney, I know someone in chat here has to have been to those. I've talked to people who have. What's your experience of the world versus the land? We used to have Six Flags in Houston, and we used to call it Astro World a lot of the time. So yeah, like Travis Scott didn't invent all of that as a joke. The Astros, we used to have a stadium. The stadium used to be right next to where all the parks were. They turned the stadium into something else. I think they even wiped the stadium out and built something completely new. So yeah, we used to actually we used to be a pretty big like theme park place. We had a Six Flags near Astro World, and near the Astrodome. And then we have in Texas, up in San Antonio or down in San Antonio, depending on where you're at, we have Six Flags Fiesta Texas. So yeah, like Houston used to be pretty big in that respect. We used to even have a water park as well. So yeah, we used to be like Astro Worldy, if you want to call it that. Like we had that vibe. So maybe that's what Travis Scott was going for. I don't fucking know. Doesn't he have a song called Astro World or some shit, or an album or some shit? Why Six Flags? Honestly, I have no idea. I know the Astro thing is because of the Astrodome, but I have no idea what Six Flags means, if I'm being honest. Legoland is a theme park? That sounds pretty badass, actually. I went to Disneyland. It was a line simulator for me. You're telling me it wasn't a virtual world, Narashu? I don't believe you. Heel says he went to both and he likes land more because it's more focused. Hey, he's making the argument for multiplayer online RPGs, baby. The amusement park itself is named after the Six Flags that have flown over Texas over the course of history. What the fuck? I never knew that. I call myself a Texan, and I didn't even know France was involved with Texas ever. I know they gave us money and guns, but when the fuck did they own Texas? All right, we're learning a lot of shit today. That's crazy. Oh, the more you fucking know, I guess. That kind of counts. They're probably talking about like East Texas, which, by the way, has never been a significant place in Texas. No offense. It literally isn't. Pull up East or West Texas and tell me how significant those cities are. Like in the big scheme of things, even. That's kind of the point of Texas, is like a bunch of empty ass space where like nothing else is there. So maybe that's why I'm not really understanding the Louisiana, or rather the France ownership argument. Yeah, that they must mean like a technicality or some shit. Interesting. Yeah, maybe I should ask my friend, actually. He's a historian, so I wonder what he would say, cuz I don't quite understand that, I guess. Did he? Where did he go, DA? Do you know where he went? He couldn't have gone south, obviously. That was all my people's territory. I think it would, Alundris, but I think it would be more difficult than people actually realize. So if your argument is that it's not as gamey as people think it is, totally 100% agree. But that's not the point of a virtual world. It was never trying to be a game. It's trying to be another world that's virtual. You see, like, it's not a virtual world game. It's not a virtual game. It was like virtual world was the idea. So it's like, I totally agree with you that most people, funny enough, don't actually want that experience. They don't. But then that doesn't mean you get to call your game a virtual world, in my opinion. Like, because I don't think it is. Based on that. Opinion on the side, I don't think it is based on that. But also, personally don't think it is, right? You guys are still using your old flag? That's pretty cool. Yeah, no, my groups of people are all, like, weirdly spread. So I can't really claim any nation that's had a flag for a super long time, necessarily. besides maybe Spain, and that's for 600 years, I think, or 500 years. Yeah, see, they're behind you guys. I think he tried to find or found a colony in Texas, and the colony died within 2 to 3 years. So that's probably why we haven't heard about it. Gotcha. Yeah, there's a lot of failed settlements like that from Spaniards as well that don't get talked about. In fact, many of my ancestors, because they were Jewish, basically had failed settlements because the Spanish Inquisition chased them away. So they weren't failed; they were actually very prosperous settlements. But the Inquisition tracked them down all the way to North America and even kicked them out of the lands that they were being successful in there. We had to change our flag a while ago because back in those days they couldn't make an orange dye that would stay orange. No, but we got our flag. But it realistically at this point is more like an RPG world where we just sort of exist in it. It has an economy and people who populate it, I guess. I agree with that, but there's so many, like, you have to suspend your disbelief too much, in my opinion, Pin Zero, which is why I don't think it's a good argument to call games like WoW a virtual world. Because you have to be like, okay, well, everybody's basically a combatant except if you craft, and even then, that's not largely what the game's about. So you think about that, and it makes you feel like, well, okay, what are other things that I would have to, like, deny, like, plausibly to be like, okay, well, it's still a virtual world. Well, how about, like, look at the way the economy actually works, right? The way the economy actually works, it's a very closed circuit system, which is not normally how economies at scale work, right? Maybe in, like, certain sectors, but economies as a large aren't all, like, so restrictive, right? There's parts that are more open in respects, and I think that RPG games have to be restrictive in economies because it's a game. So, like, they're not thinking about, what if somebody created a new, unique material and then flooded the market with it? That's what would happen in a virtual world, right? That could probably not really ever happen in WoW. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, I guess my problem is that you can keep doing that. You can keep going. You can keep being like, okay, what are some other things? Well, you're forced to join a faction. That's kind of weird. When am I forced to join a faction when I grew up? Like, you could say that I'm, like, American, which I guess is my faction, but I don't think about it in that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're my nation, not my faction, right? It's not like my nationality was chosen for me, but it's not like I chose, like, America as my faction or whatever the fuck, right? RuneScape is pretty close to a virtual world. I completely agree. Do you want to know why? Because you can do things in the game that don't require you to have to fucking kill everybody. That's my simplest answer for is something a virtual world. Yes. If you can prove that the only thing in the game isn't just killing people. If you can prove that to me, then I don't think it's a virtual world. Sorry, I think it is. You see what I'm saying? It's such a big part of it. It's like the dude who's just sitting there fishing can change the economy without ever having to pick up a sword. That's a virtual world, guys. Because not all of us are combatants. Not all of us are soldiers or warriors. So, yeah. Exactly. Rip Vanguard, indeed. It was good at that. Very good at that. Brad was good at that in fucking general. He was obsessed with virtual worlds. What a surprise. To me, a virtual world has a variety of social systems and cultures, varied economies, and a dynamic world. To me, Kenshi is more of a virtual world than WoW, although it is single player. No, I would agree with you. I feel the same way about Mountain Blade. That's why I wax poetic about it every chance I fucking get. And I mean, look at my played hours recently. Like, let me pull up my played. See? Like, I don't play a whole lot of games, but pretty much, like, these other games, I played for like an hour or two each. This one, look, the vast majority of my time, when I'm not playing an MMO, reviewing one or writing, I like to find myself playing a little bit of Mountain Blade on the side. So you bet your ass, as soon as they're ready to go fucking massive, I'm right there. I'm ready. I do think that Dwarf Fortress is an amazing virtual world. I will agree with that. Mountain Blade MMO, Mountain Blade MMO, Mountain Blade MMO. All right, guys, I think we've reached the end of the stream. It's a good time for me to stop. I'm tired sufficiently. We talked about a bunch of interesting things. Actually, should we be fair and let him finish this video? We should.
Wrong. I think the real world, sucks in a lot of ways, and I think these virtual worlds that we create are so amazing, and so are going to become more increasingly essential to our lives in the future.
But a common misconception of a virtual world, which I'm not saying he thinks it, but right there it almost implies, is that there isn't consequence, that there isn't going to be, there's going to be people who, when they play these games, aren't going to have a good time. And I think that's such an important part of the process that Alundra's actually pointed out. And I think people have to acknowledge that maybe they don't actually want that kind of game. If you don't, then you don't, but I do. 24-hour podcast win when you guys want me to die. Shit, when I move to Spain, how about this? When I move to Spain, I'll do a 24-hour stream. So I'll see you guys in 2 years. I'll do a 24-hour stream in Spain, because in Spain, I'm going to have a studio space. It's another big reason why I can't wait to go there. Way more affordable, cheaper, and also I'll very likely be a citizen. So, large reasons why I want to go there, so. Mountain Blade campaign, then? Hell yeah. Die so I can take over and make this podcast great for once. Make podcasts great again. Mipka to you too, Limpos. Yeah, so today, not gonna lie, I'm pretty much all focused on working. I might get a little bit of COD in just to get some games in. So I'm gonna focus on finishing my Marvel Avengers script before I leave back home, which is just a couple hours away for the holiday. A day or two. So I'm going to try to get that one done and hand it over to my editor. So he's going to start working on that one immediately. Right now, he should be finishing up Anthem. I'm not entirely sure where it's at exactly, but it should be pretty close to done. And then we're going to hopefully try to squeeze in Marvel Avengers as well. So it was never great. Make emotes. I know. I need emotes. And in fact, RC Win, you're absolutely right. I have no good excuse for that other than I'm just poor. So, and that's not a really good excuse, honestly. This was a great stream. Thank you, Isomore. I appreciate that. So yeah, RC Win, I got you, bud. You've been here for a fucking while. I remember that shit. I really appreciate everybody's support today. I'd like to thank everybody for stopping by, chatting with me. I really wanted to take the time to explain more of like my perspective on this, even whenever I mention the stuff about the Blizzard stuff, because my perspective is to never come across as I'm the know-it-all. My perspective is to make all of us know-it-alls. That's actually how I feel and think, personally. It's why I make my videos. It's why I want to make more videos regarding guides and stuff that I'm very much interested in doing at the start of next year. So, like, trust me, all of that's very important for me. My goals are not to silence people or to say that I know better than you because I've been playing longer. I take it more seriously. It's to say, here's my perspective as one of those people. What's yours? You know? And then us being able to talk and work things out. I mean, I see what you did now, Limpos. That's such a dick move. All right, guys. I'll see y'all later. Good to see y'all again, as I mentioned. Thanks for stopping by. I really enjoyed the podcast today. No medication or not, you guys made me feel better, so I appreciate that. That doesn't happen often, so that was enjoyable. And you definitely have very good content to listen to, and your streams are interesting to listen to. Thank you, Lead Loki, and hopefully you guys keep enjoying them, and I can keep upgrading the production and making things look better and all that kind of stuff that I'm still working on. I'll be moving in about a month or two, and a big part of that move is moving into a more private place. I moved into it's not even cheap, it's so overpriced here, this apartment I live in, but the walls are thin, meaning I could probably punch through this wall right here pretty easily. Like, I know walls and studs because I did, long story short, when I did fire stop and construction for 7 to 8 years, I had to learn how to do on-screen takeoff, which made me pretty damn proficient in anything mapping. So anything with mapping, cables, HVAC, pipes, walls, you name it. I know how it looks without even seeing inside of the wall most of the time, and I know where it flows in a building because I did it for such a long time. So I know that these walls probably have next to no insulation and they're just fucking paper thin. So a lot of the time I want to stream at night, I can't even stream because I'm afraid that I'm going to be too loud. So like stuff like that keeps me from making good content actually. Need to get obnoxious bright colored lights like all. I go for the nice little purple back here. You know, nothing too crazy because I'm going to have to move all of this set in like a month or two. So I didn't want to like go all out and then boom, move. I want to go to my next place, stay there for the next 2 years before I move, and then really focus on making that set good. So that's my goal. And anyway, see you guys later. As you can tell, my brain's already stopping. It's obnoxious looking. I don't like the ones where it's too bright, personally. But maybe that's because my complexion's fucking weird or some shit. I don't know. Peace.